This might be the first time I've ever not.
I
worn
don't
a jacket.
know. No.
I think it's the first time I've not worn a jacket to a meeting.
Things are going the right way on that.
Of course, remind everybody to speak into your mic so that we can hear you well.
All right, the clock in the boardroom indicates it's 5:30. I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Southeast Polk Community School District Board of Directors meeting, November 19th, 2020. Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes. Fisher,
Yep. Here?
Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here.
Handy,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Crab.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. In fact, everybody's here. Next item is 1B, agenda adoption. First, Dirk, are there any changes?
There are none.
Okay. I have a motion.
Motion to approve. I'll second it.
All right, Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes. All right, item 1C, and I, per usual, forgot to line this up beforehand. Is somebody willing to do the district vision and mission? Thanks, Lori.
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you. Next item is 1D, public comments. As has often been the case during the pandemic, we've received lots of emails. We're really good at viewing those, and I don't respond to many of them, but I do see all of them, and I'm sure that's true with all the other board members. If somebody would like to make a public comment that's listening on the internet, we'll allow those. There are some. We'll read them into the record. First of all, we're doing that. Board Secretary, have you received any comments on the agenda item?
President Fisher, we received 7 public comments to the Google form.
All right.
I can read those at this time.
Sure. Go ahead.
I will read them with my camera off because I'm a bit self-conscious with my reading.
All right.
Alexis Thompson, address of 6971 Southeast 27th Place in Pleasant Hill. Alexis writes, I understand the need to keep our students and staff safe at Southeast Polk. Please keep in mind, looking at the numbers in Polk County, it's not a true reflection of the Pleasant Hill, Altoona, Runnels area. In addition, look at the minimal positive cases within each school. 4 Mile had more positive cases with the at-home learners. It just shows that kids in schools full-time is the safest option. It's hard on kids and families going back and forth with these decisions. Huxley School District, also rural, has been in class learning 100% of the time since school started. They do not have astronomical numbers or any issues more than any other school districts. Private schools are also 100% in school learning with no issues. Let's keep our students on the right educational path and have them back to consistent in-school learning. Those who are at risk or feel differently always have the 100% at-home option. Please let the rest have an option of what they feel works best for their children and family units. Mandy Reed, located in Altoona, writes, I have been a huge proponent of 100% in-person learning, and I still want that for our kids. I have seen such difference in them during the 100% in-person. The numbers are scary right now, and we as a community and state can do better. I feel schools continue to be one of the safest places for our kids. Of those out with COVID, it's coming from community spread, not at school. Please consider keeping our kids at least in hybrid to 50% in person. Most of the kids who are in this model are doing so because 100% virtual does not work for them. Parents continue to have the option for 100% online. Let's keep our option. The next one is from Kara Sanders. Kara located at 1540 3rd Avenue Southeast. I know today is a busy day. I know you receive hundreds and if not thousands of emails. Please take time to consider mine. I'm a mental health therapist in Altoona. I specialize in adolescents and teenagers. I see many kids within the Southeast Polk district. I'm seeing the mental health impact of your decisions every day. Research shows that peer relationships are a key defining factor in the development of process for students, children, and teens. 100% online learning takes that away. Our kids need each other. Young children learn by watching other kids, by interacting together. We are robbing them of crucial opportunities for character development by keeping them out of school. We will see the impact of this in my field for years to come. I see the impact in my own child who attends kindergarten at Centennial. Please do the right thing for the mental well-being of our kids. They need at least the opportunity to be at school half-time. Don't take that away from them. Thank you for consideration. Hallie Anderson, located at 603 35th Street Southwest, writes, I am writing to ask if we are unable to return to a full return to learn plan at this time, that you consider continuing the hybrid 2 option, where parents at least have the choice to send their kids part-time or can choose to go 100% virtual if that works for their families. I can ask as a SEP community, we do our part to make better, safer choices that will keep kids and staff safe and healthy. Thank you for your time and efforts. Angela Forsberg, located at 8067 Northeast 50th Avenue, writes, Dear members, I know that this has been quite a year, and the decisions you are making are not easy. I do feel fortunate that I'm not in your position, but I also feel that some of the members are not being as open to mental health of all students. At this time, the following statements have been made by the CDC. The many benefits of in-person schooling should be weighted against the risks posed by COVID-19 spread. Of key significance, in-person learning is the best interest of students when compared to virtual learning. By strictly implementing mitigation strategies, schools will be able to meet the needs of their students and community while reducing the risk of COVID-19 spread. From the CDC website, in order to reach the goal of reopening school safety and as quickly as possible for in-person learning and help schools remain open, it is important to diligently implement actions to slow the spread of COVID-19 inside the school and out in the community. The CDC is a governing body that specifically works with these health situations. So why are we not following what they have said? Once again, I will say that I'm a healthcare provider and will follow the guidelines of the CDC. And so my question is this: why do you not have to follow this? COVID is here to stay for some time as the vaccine is being formulated. But if we are not able to have our children educated to the level where they may one day participate the next time to formulate a vaccine, our future is in danger. Please understand that I'm not on the school board and I do not wish I was in your place, but do not be selfish and listen to all opinions and think about the future of these children. Do not be scared of the current situation, but be scared for the future if we do not return to learn. Susan Connor, 6487 Southeast 124th Street in Runnels. How many elementary age students have transmitted the virus? If the data shows they are not spreaders of the virus, please keep them in school, at least part-time. The social, emotional, and mental risks are too high otherwise. You move to hybrid 2 in order to be able to combine classrooms. To change that opinion after such a short time without data supporting it for all grade levels would be unfounded. The final comment to the Google Forms from Heather Byers. Heather's at 3113 3rd Avenue Southwest in Altoona. Good evening. As the cases in Polk County have gone up the last few weeks, I'm sure the decision of what to do with in-person school has weighed heavily on your minds. For our family, we really hope you continue to allow in-person school. My 8-year-old was the happiest she has been in months during those 2 weeks of hybrid 1. And this last week of hybrid 2, she was increasingly been frustrated with online learning and being at home. This morning I even joked with her that I was going to change her name. For our 13-year-old, the consequences of going 100% virtual will be even worse. Because of his IEP, he attends school every day. Last week, he had to be home for a couple of days, and the 3 days of virtual school he did that week are still having a ripple effect.
You cutting out or?
Yeah, I don't know. Kevin, are you still there?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here. The
Okay.
screen is freezing again. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
just checking.
Jason, can you pick up where I left off?
I don't have it pulled up. I have the Zoom comments ready. Let me to transition over to the Zoom.
Yeah, let's
comments.
do Zoom comments and then maybe you'll unfreeze and we'll try to get that last bit in.
Okay, so here's a comment from Amy. While many parents and students, my household included, would prefer 100% in-person schooling, I predict that the majority of us would be accepting of a hybrid 2 or a virtual model if our concerns regarding online learning were being addressed. We have sent numerous emails to principals, teachers, and the director of education, with most of these emails falling on deaf ears. We have 2 students in our household, and neither receive actual education from most of the teachers on their home days. Furthermore, we have been quarantined at home this week while we wait for test results and have received no actual education for the school days we have missed, just additional homework and busy work. If we are required to quarantine for a full 14 days, they will certainly fall behind. I had thought the hybrid 2 model was designed so students could continue to receive the same education at home as they would in school. I understand that it is very unlikely that we will be returning to hybrid 1 before the end of 2020. Therefore, I ask that you focus on the concerns that students, teachers, and parents have been bringing forward with the current model and work to improve the educational experience for all. Diana Baumann comment is, I need to leave a comment to share about my concern to going virtual. My foster boys need to be in school. They were failing in the Des Moines Public School virtual schooling. Since joining Altoona Elementary, they have made drastic improvements. I'd hate to see them fail once again. From Terry Mash, community spread is incredibly high and hospitals are taxed. If we stay with this option, we need to allow families to change back to in-person before the end of the semester. We need check-in points as the community spread changes. Stephanie comment is, these children need to stay in school. If it be the way we are, then so be it. The children are doing better, mental and physical, as long as everyone does what is required of them. Please keep these children in school. If you go 100% online, some will not be doing their schooling. It is too much on them and they have breakdowns. Not all children learn the same way. Please keep this in mind before going 100% online. My children will be one of the ones who will have meltdowns and not worth the fight. I think that is all of Zoom comments.
Kevin, are you still out there?
I am still here, yes.
Were you able to pull the rest of that comment up?
Yes, working on format right now. I can continue with the comment.
Okay.
Again, this is Heather Byers continuing. For our family, we really hope they continue to allow in-person school. My 8-year-old was the happiest she has been in months during those 2 weeks of hybrid 1. In the last week of hybrid 2, she was increasingly been frustrated with her online learning and being at home. This morning, I even joked with her that I was going to change her name to Attitude Byers. You see, my 8-year-old knows that hybrid 1 is better, and while she is so hard to understand the need for a few weeks of hybrid 2, every day she is stuck with this subpar version of school is upsetting to her. Having to switch to 100% virtual would be devastating to her, especially since it has been said over and over that our mitigation efforts are working and that this is not spreading in the schools. For our 13-year-old, the consequences of going to 100% virtual school will be even worse. Because of his IEP, he attends school every day. Last week, he had to be home for a couple of days, and the 3 days of virtual school he did that week are still having a ripple effect into this week. There are so many missing of 0 assignments that he is struggling to get caught back up. You see, when he is at home, no matter how hard we try, he just is unable to get work done correctly. For him, in-person learning is paramount, and I have talked to other parents of kids who are the same way. Kids who have struggled so hard with the virtual days in hybrid 2, who will also be falling behind, and we're forced into a full virtual learning environment. So I once again encourage you to please make sure the decisions you are making are not heavy-handed. As we all know, hybrid 1 was delayed by as much as 4 weeks because of a heavy-handed decision to extend hybrid 2. Last week, I heard you all talk about staff shortages, about how we were not being forced into hybrid 2 because of COVID, but rather because of staff shortages. So last week, there were 16 positives, 49 in quarantine, and 15 close contacts at school. This week, there are 21 positive, 32 in quarantine, and only 4 close contacts at school. That means that we have 12 less staff members out this week due to COVID-19 and 11 less close contacts at school. In my mind, that would, at a minimum, be reason enough to extend hybrid 2 for another week and see where we continue to trend after the holiday. The governor had her press conference today, and even she said that things are starting to level off and that she is hopeful we will begin to start trending down in the next couple of weeks. We are leveling off and hoping to trend downward. It seems like moving to 100% virtual at this point would be a heavy-handed decision. I also wanted to ask that instead of making decisions for the entire district, that you perhaps consider a less heavy-handed approach that makes decisions on a building-by-building basis. For example, if staff absences are low at Mitchellville, why can't they continue in hybrid 1? Or if staff absences are high at Clay Elementary, maybe they have to go online for 1 week, but the rest of the buildings get to stay in hybrid 2. Last week, it seemed like staff absences were great in only 1 or 2 buildings, but all the other buildings had to transition to hybrid 2. It feels like it would be more manageable approach if this could be broken up by building or grade level. That are the end of the comments.
Thank you, Kevin.
Welcome.
Jason, is the comment shut off on the public thing? Okay. Okay. I just don't want that to ramble on the whole meeting.
Okay, at this time, I think we've got all the public comments into the record. So we'll move on from that and move to item 1E, consent agenda.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments on that? All right, Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Okay, that's next item is Roman numeral 2, topics for discussion, financial update for 2020.
Thank you, President Fisher.
Yes,
As one of the last items we do for the outgoing school board as it sits today is do one final financial update, providing balances for each of our funds. At your place settings are the fund balances and cash balances, these expenditures and revenues for each fund. To see fund balances, as we talked about before with our year-end summary, the general fund did go down based on what we had budgeted, and also a little bit due to the COVID expenses. Activity funds have gone down due to not receiving revenues due with all the activities that were not done. And also the PEPL fund was down just slightly, but we also know that for this current year, our PEPL will increase to the maximum amount. Solvency ratios, page 2. Solvency ratio, you'll see, did drop quite about 5 percentage points, a little over 5 percentage points, but it comes more in line with our unspent authority. So that those ratios, if you see, kind of will even out at about 15% once we get to that point, which, as I've always talked about, 5 to 15% is good when it comes to the IASB averages and where we need to be in those locations and those ratios. But those do come back in line. Our solvency ratio fell quite a bit last year. It will do so again this year because we have not been able to do a cash reserve levy for those balances, but we will be able to do so in 2022, I'm hopeful. So if we stick around 15% for both those ratios, I think those line up to the needs of what the district have right at this point in time. Are there any questions about those balances that you see? Or any questions based on our discussions last board meeting and the board meeting before about year-end financials?
Like we're good, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one more item here, but before we adjourn this board and start a new one, I wasn't sure I was going to do this, but I'll be quick about it. We usually kick the school year off when we're all in the same room, all the teachers, all the staff, bus drivers, cooks, everyone, and we have the board there and we introduce the board. Well, I didn't get a chance to do that this year. And the last time I was president, I had a lot of people comments, well, you took the time to tell us about the board members and we really appreciated that. We know some of them, but we don't know all of them. And so I'm just going to go around the room, just say a little bit about each board member. Chad Crabb is our newest board member. And I think he married into the Ram. Didn't go to school here like some of us, but he married into it. And it's funny because I just got an email this last week from somebody said, well, I didn't get this Southeast Polk thing, but my husband came from here and I got drug out here and started drinking the Kool-Aid. So Chad's in that boat and his wife's very active. He's active and they have a young family and he brings a new perspective. And I think, I don't know exactly what he does for a living, but I know he does numbers and computers. So, technology, which he's trying to, keep us older ones, less technology oriented people moving along. And that's great. And that's good because that's what the world's about for certain is the implementation and use of technology to advance the cause. So that's Chad. And then Adam Krell is also one of our newer members to me. I guess he's going into his 4th year now, but he is that younger perspective, a young family, growing family. And Adam is very enthusiastic. If you listen to the board meeting, he's very enthusiastic about what his role as a school board member. And he talks to everybody and he finds out all this information. And, I don't know how he does it, but he spends a lot of time chasing down the facts and figures and trying to get as much information as he can to make the best information or make the best decision as he can. And so that's Adam. And Rick, I don't think there's a lot of school boards. Maybe there are, but I know in my time on the school board, we haven't had somebody that's actually got an education degree on the school board. He's a former teacher. Decades long teacher. He was a former school administrator. And so he brings that to the table. He's very active in the community. He like Lori is a guy that's always going. Before the pandemic, I'd run into him everywhere to the point where I thought there must be 2 or 3 of this guy's supposedly retired, but man, he's everywhere all the time. And very committed to his role and he knows lots of people. And so he's plugged in and that's helpful to the board. I can remember one of the first meetings that he was there, or what I remember distinctly is there was a meeting where he was going back and forth with Joe Ellen on all these education topics. And it was just helpful to have a board member that could help, could speak the language and follow all that in real time. And then Brett's been on the board a long time. And Brett is a Altoona police officer. If you could put together, different people and different perspectives, I think that's what makes this board powerful. His background's law enforcement. And so a couple of years ago, or I guess really for many years, but in the few years ago, we were doing our entrance and redoing our entrances and doing all this stuff related to school safety. Here you have somebody whose whole life is devoted to that and has been, brings that perspective. And he was officer friendly. So he was in the schools as a part of his job and he knew the teachers and he knew the principals and knew a lot of the kids and has his own family. And so, very committed to the school district. And then Lori, I think most everybody in Southeast Polk knows Lori. And I kind of alluded to it with Rick. She's one of these people. I remember my first years on the board. She was everywhere. I would see her everywhere doing everything. And she's very active and you name it. She's not only she's active, she's leading it. She's a leader. and very committed to her school. You know, she went to Southeast Polk and committed to the school district, committed to her community, and you know, just goes and goes and goes. And Lori's an example of, I don't think you could get politically, which we don't bring up much here, and I probably shouldn't bring it up now, probably going to get me in trouble, but politically, Lori and I are about as opposites as you get. And I think maybe we're an example of what would be good overall, you know, where two people can differ on policies or whatever, but get together on the same goals and the same purpose, and recognize that we're different, but respect one another. So that's Lori Slings. And then Tom, he's our scientist. He's Southeast Polk, you know, black and gold through and through, and went here and has a big family, you know, extended family that's in the district, and his kids go here, and he's a pharmacist. And so, you know, when we're talking about COVID and all these medical things, he brings that kind of perspective to it, and that's helpful to have on the board. And so, and there's me, and at one time, and we had 3 lawyers on the board. Thank goodness we're only down to 1. And I don't plan to run again. So then you're really be in good shape when you get rid of the last one. But I went to Altoona Elementary. I think, Lori, you went to Mitchellville. And you go to 4 Miles. So, you know, we represent. And so we're committed. We, you know, it's like I said in the last meeting, we don't do this. There's no pay involved. It's like I say, one time early on, I got a coffee cup with a ram on it, and then somebody at work stole it from me. But we do it because we're committed. We're trying to help. We're trying to improve. And you may disagree with us. And these are hard decisions. I mean, by far, we've had all kinds of issues. This has by far been the most difficult one. I'm going to be glad that my term as president ends, and because there's a lot to that role, and particularly now more than ever. But in my realm, like a jury, the board, the sum of the parts, the whole is more than the sum of the parts, because with that perspective of different backgrounds and thoughts and ideas, and we don't agree, and our community doesn't agree. And we've had our scuffles in here, just like it's been out in the community and some of the emails that we've got. But I think in the end, we're moving forward. We're doing the best we can. And I think we are making progress through these difficult times. So anyway, I'll keep moving because I know we've got plenty to do. But with that, I would entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Now I think it's Kevin's call, right?
It is. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, President Fisher, for your service. We will find you a coffee mug.
All right. Okay.
First item for business.
Yeah, I will.
Time is 5:57 p.m., November 19th. And this is the 2021 Board of Education organizational meeting. Karen, can you take roll call, please?
Yes. Just a second. Handy,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Nave,
Here.
Slings.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. First item for business under B1 is the election of the president. Are there any nominations for president of the school board for the 2021 school year?
This is Lori Slings, and I'd like to nominate Board Member Brett Handy for the office of president.
Thank you, Ms. Slings. Mr. Handy has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for president?
Move to close the floor to nominations.
Thank you, Mr. Krell. I think this is a voice call vote, if I remember correctly.
If there's
for-
one candidate, that is correct.
This is for nomination of Mr. Handy as board president. Krell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Thinking Yes. about it.
Yes. Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Handy, can I please have you stand?
I'm wearing shorts. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do that.
And raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I'll try to follow along.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of president in the Southeast Polk Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Handy. You can now take over the role as president.
I don't know if I can do it as well as Gary. I'll try to remember how to do this, but all right, now do I have any nominations for the office of vice president?
I would move to nominate Chad Crab.
Seconded.
Oh, I guess it's me. I'm sorry. Are there any other nominations for vice president? All
Move to close the nominations.
right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All right, is the oath on here?
You have to do the voice vote.
Oh, that's right. I'm gonna mess this up, Gary.
You're one-handed. It's okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and do the voice vote for nominee Chad Crab for vice president. Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Nave,
Yes.
Ms. Slings,
Yes.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Krell,
Yes.
Mr. Crab,
Yes.
and Mr. Handy, yes.
The oath is at the bottom of the 20202 attachment there.
I apologize for this. I should have been ready for this, but. All right, Mr. Chad Crab, would you stand up and raise your right hand? Guess I don't have to stand up, do I? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your abilities, discharge the duties of the office of Vice President in the Southeast Polk Community School District as now and hereafter required by law?
Yes, I will. I do.
All right, thank you very much. All right,
2 times in life you have to say I do, man.
all right. Thank you, board, for allowing me the opportunity to do this. I got to get back to the agenda because awkward silence.
How's your vision?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, that does not work. Of course, I exited out of the wrong one when. I better get into
Confirmation
it,
of
'cause
next
otherwise-
I'm
meeting.
not giving up my paper one.
Yeah, Karen, I may have to have some paper ones, but.
There you go.
I'll
There
give you
you go.
mine. There you
All
go.
right. Thank you, Lori. I'm not obviously the computer technician here, so
So the second page of that agenda.
oh, gotcha. Okay.
First is B, old new business.
All right. And actually, since we have to go ahead and close out that last meeting, then now we can start over. So can I have a motion?
Yeah, we've done
We already
that.
adjourned that meeting.
You're on
We're-
B,
5A.
Yeah.
5A.
yeah, 5A, confirmation of next meeting.
Yep, you're right. Okay.
Motion to approve the next meetings, approval, yeah.
And it's just the one in the month of December,
It's
yes.
just one.
Yeah, okay. I'm back on it here. All right. So confirmation of next meetings. And I don't have those meetings in front of me because my computer went.
The 17th.
One in December.
17th.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Thank you. Karen, can
Handy,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
yes,
All right. Number B, or letter B, appointment of Board of Education member to District Advisory Committee.
As is tradition, I nominate our Vice President, Director Crab, for that role.
Second that.
And
all
this-
you.
yeah,
does that work?
And this usually is just, there's 4 meetings a year, is that right?
Yeah.
Doctor? They don't work you too hard, but it is another meeting you have to attend, and I'm not even sure if they're the months they are, but I'm sure Joellen or Dr. Lutnick can tell you when they are. So Karen, can I get roll call?
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Handy,
Yes.
All right. You probably need
Well,
this.
Yeah. As I say, there's got to be a letter C. Thank you. Letter C is the 2021-22 academic calendar public hearing. Do I have a motion?
You have to
I
open
think
the
you can
public
just
hearing.
open the public hearing. Yep.
All right, the time is 6:06. Yeah, would you? Yeah. Yeah, time is 6:06. I'll now open the public hearing to receive any comments. Board Secretary, have you received any written comments?
I have not.
Obviously, nobody present, but do we have anybody online that's wishing to address
Both the comment sections are shut off online.
should we open those back up for about a minute or so and see if we do get any comments? Just.
Yep.
Okay, this is, if you have any questions about the public hearing on the academic calendar for 2021-22 year, it has been set, and this will be the hearing to let the board approve it. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask away. We'll leave it open for a minute or so just to let people type. If we need to leave it open a little bit longer, we can. Are we getting anybody typing? Not yet. Okay.
Open it up again for Zoom, or did you open for YouTube as well? Okay, I'll say, because I'm showing it's still disabled there, so.
Go to 6:08. If we haven't had anything by then, we'll go ahead and close it. It's 6:07, so we got a little time yet. Thank you, Rick.
you got it open?
All right, it looks like it's 6:06. We haven't received any online comments or questions, so we'll go ahead and close the hearing at 6:08 PM. All right, so letter D, this will be for the 2021-22 academic calendar discussion.
Motion to approve the 21-22 academic calendar.
Go ahead. You got it?
Nope, all you.
Okay. Second.
All right, thanks, Chad. All right, any discussion on the academic calendar? Dr. Lipnick, do you have anything that you'd like to comment, or does Mr. Stotts on here that wants to say anything, or?
He is on here. Like we talked about last meeting, it's very similar to this calendar.
Doesn't look like anybody has any questions, so we'll go ahead and take a roll, Karen.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Okay. Letter E, early retirement.
Motion to approve early retirement.
I'll second that.
Questions? We had a decent discussion with Mr. Horton last time on it. I think it's obviously a good program to have, is that January date to kind of understand who wants to exit. We just hope there's not a mass exit.
You're right.
And again, as President Fisher has always done, I think this is a good time to thank teachers and staff just for the things that they do all year long, especially this year when with the topics that we always have each meeting. And I know everybody's getting wore out with it. So for those of you that are thinking, hopefully maybe this thank you will keep you around another year, but we do appreciate everything you do. As was mentioned before, it's when we have a large group of people go out, that's a lot of experience that we lose. So, but I also understand that it may be time to start a new career. So with that, can we take a roll, Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
All right. Letter F, high school early graduates.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have one question just to make sure that those being presented have met the criteria for the district. I thought he was on.
Mr. Pettit is.
Yeah, Steve shared with me that yes,
There's
they
a
have.
good, okay. That's my only question.
Lori, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, Lori, they've met the district graduation requirements.
And this is about average what we have graduate early
Yes.
every year. Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Pettit while he's here? Or? All right. If not, Karen, can we take a roll?
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Letter G, fiscal year 22 high school programs of studies.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions for Mr. Pettit since I think he's still on. Again, had a good discussion on some changes that are going to be coming.
Really
Alright.
like the addition of the new course. Some of the new courses are really nice and the addition will be good for our students. So
Yeah, I'll say that. I've made a habit of voting no on this for reasons that go way back. I think it's just become expected, but I'm so pleased with the additions of the computer. See, I'm getting on that
you go,
technology
Gary.
stuff. You're bringing me
Yep.
along. I'm actually going to vote yes on this.
oh my.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right. Karen will take roll on
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
it. Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes. I mean, no.
You said yes.
Yeah.
Can't go back. All right, letter H, resolution appointing paying agent bond registrar transfer agent GO bond series 2020A. Administration has recommended that the board approve the resolution appointing bond agent, registrar transfer, et cetera. Tax exemption certificates, approve the continuing disclosure certificate and approve the resolution authority of issuance bonds. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And just to clarify, this is for the $92 million
Go bonds.
bonds that we have been discussing and the community voted.
Correct.
So did I have a second? I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? All right. Karen, roll.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Okay. I, this will be modified allowable growth. Administration recommends the board approve the maximum modified supplemental amount included in the SBRC application for ELL, which we got to get rid of these. My favorites. I guess I'm president now. I can demand that, right? Yeah, no acronyms. Just kidding.
We'll take out SEP, all the others.
All right. So for ELL instruction beyond 5 years of the amount of $52,719. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? And I'm just kidding about the acronyms. I should learn them.
President Handy, this is just to clarify, this is something that the board does every year regarding certified enrollment and where those numbers sit. There are 3 different avenues in which we can get modified allowable growth. One is increased enrollment, which we did not have this year, an increase in English language learners past 5 years, and also the next item, the increase in open enrollment. The Department of Education would like to see us do this as 3 different agenda items, and that's why they're stated separately this year.
Thank you. Karen, can I get roll?
Handy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
All right. J, this is the SBRC modified allowable growth. Administration recommends the board approve the maximum modified supplemental amount included in the SBRC application for open enrolled out students not previously reported in the amounts of $637,776. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I get a second?
Sure.
Okay. We'll give that to Gary. Karen, if you didn't catch it.
thank you.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Karen, roll, please.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. Okay. Ongoing topic each time, it seems like. K, return to learn.
I'd like to make a motion for that.
Okay.
Move all grade levels. I'm making a motion to move all grade levels to remote learning beginning on Monday, November 30th through Friday, December 11th. A waiver will be submitted to the Iowa Department of Education to seek approval for a temporary online learning model from November 30th to December 11th.
Do I have a second on this?
Seconded.
Okay, do you have a second? So is there discussion?
I can jump in here and walk through the data that you've got at your space, and Jason's got it as well. So at our 11/11 board meeting, board voted to move to hybrid 2 through the 24th of November, and then to so again, looking at those data points that we've continually looked at from the Iowa Department of Public Health, the CDC, our own local data, and we'll move through that. As I shared with you last night, a chart much like this one that kind of walks through most of those criteria. I'll kind of take you through each of these. There's a typo as I look at 1118, that should be 1119 on there. Percent positivity for Polk County today was 19.8%. And just to kind of to guide you through here, the blue stars is where our data puts us. The green numbers is where we were last Wednesday when we met, just to give you comparative data to see the changes.
And this data is taken from the IDPH or from CDC?
The Polk County is from the coronavirus.org.
I'm sorry, I should clarify. The numbers that you're using for your categories, are those taken from the Iowa Department of Public Health or?
Both, depending on what they are. Yes.
Sorry.
Yep. No, that's a good question. Drilling it down to percent positivity over 14 days for just our zip codes, you can see that for us, in the 5 zip codes that make up the Southeast Polk School District, it looks more like 18.9%. Specifically today, Altoona was at 19%, Pleasant Hill 19%, the Northeast Des Moines 22%, Runnels 25%, and Mitchellville at 12%. And there were a total of 103 new positive cases in the district yesterday. Absentee rate to date through the 4 days is actually 6.6%. It was 6.36 when I did that a little bit past noon. And by the end of the day, somebody must not have had their full data in there yet. It was 6.6%. And we will adjust that anyway for the full week tomorrow. But just to give absentee rate for staff was at 13.7%, and you can see that's jumped up a bit from last week, a little over 1%. And that is a concern. Positive cases for students continue to hover right around 0.5%. Of course, we'd rather have it be 0, but like to see that low number. Quarantine students did tick up so far this week. It's at 5.4%. Positive cases for staff have also ticked up this week, 2.1%. Quarantine staff, we did have some good news this week in that we had a couple groups that were quarantined for two similar or two different scenarios be able to come back. Cases per 100,000 over 14 days continues to grow, and that's another one of those concerns. That's that measure of the amount of virus out there in the community, and you can see it's at 1455. Capacity to conduct school operations probably is the most important line on this chart. And I would classify us as right on the borderline of strained and critical at this point. And we can talk a little bit more in a minute about where that comes from. Mitigation strategies with the change and the transition back to hybrid 2 does allow us to meet all of the mitigation strategy factors according to the CDC. I also added in hospitalization, and I'll explain why also in a minute. When you look online on the Iowa coronavirus website, it showed 154 COVID hospitalizations in the county, and the most recent data is for the 17th. But Polk County shared with us that there were 255. I'm not sure where the difference is and who's counting what, why it's different like that.
Was Polk, apologies.
Go ahead.
Polk,
It was also from the 17th, yes. Digging a little bit deeper, when you look at absentee rates for students, similar to what I shared last week, I just pulled from last Wednesday through today. We did not have, the high school had not reported by the time that this meeting started, so I apologize for the one blank square down in the corner there. But one of the things that is a concern here from a student absentee rate is that 9 of the 10 buildings that have reported here are above 7% absentee rate. And you can see there are 3 of them there that are above 10%, which obviously is that magic line. When you look at staff, on this one, you can see that there are 8 of the 10 buildings that have reported. We haven't, like I said, don't have high school data on this one yet. I will get that, and I'll get that to you as soon as I have it. And you can see from a staff standpoint, there's a wide range there. And then digging into the COVID specific data. Again, I put in from last Wednesday until today, and I do have the data for today on there. If you look on the student side, there are 30 students in isolation, 332 quarantined, and 44 of those are school related. So the numbers are pretty similar from yesterday to today. But one thing I would point out, the number of quarantines from last Wednesday was at 233. Today it's at 332. So we've increased 100 students in quarantine in a week, roughly. On the staff side of things, the numbers for today: in isolation, 21, quarantine, 33, and school-related, 4. And like I said on that, we did we're able to have some of our staff members come out of quarantine this week. So you saw that drop there, but we have continued to inch on the positive cases on the staff side. So ultimately, the recommendation as was read previously, we're recommending that we move after Thanksgiving to fully remote for all grade levels, and ask the Department of Education for that waiver. I'm recommending that we ask for the 2 weeks. That doesn't mean we're locked in to have. And I think that's something that I think everybody would be open to. It's an extremely, extremely difficult decision for a recommendation. In fact, I can't think of something more difficult in this role that I've had to deal with. We've wanted to avoid this, and I understand all of the different perspectives on this. I do, and they all make sense. Everybody that's coming at this from all different angles. But ultimately, in looking at the positivity in our local zip codes, our staff absentee rate, the sheer number of cases in the community, the effect that that's having on our capacity to conduct operations. One thing I didn't share, we have 20 people also waiting on test results. So those numbers that you have there, tomorrow will be definitely different. And depending on how that happens, that sets off a whole nother chain of events.
That 20 staff or
20
students?
staff, sorry, yes,
And those
That are
20
out waiting on test results.
correct. The hospitalization rate, you know, the community healthcare has reached out to us. I did share with you the Polk County Health Department's letter that was sent to all Polk County superintendents and athletic or activities directors today, asking for help. In the Polk County Emergency Management meeting that I attended this week, lots of serious words used regarding the next couple of weeks here. And I guess what hits me the hardest is the expectation of an extremely substantial increase after Thanksgiving. And that's what really drives home the recommendation that's coming tonight regarding our model. That post-Thanksgiving spike is a huge concern when you look at our numbers where they are now, and if we increase that with that surge. I would say that this is not intended to be permanent. This is intended to be for the least amount of time possible. We've stressed from the beginning flexibility here. We've shown that we have had to change models. We can change models. It's difficult. Every time that we pivot in our instructional model, it puts an enormous amount of stress on our families, our students, our staff, our administration, our management, everybody. And we recognize that. So it's not something that it's just, oh, let's flip this switch and flip that switch. There's a ton of thought and work that goes into these recommendations. So the idea would be to get back to in-person learning as soon as we can do that. I can't paint an overly rosy picture for the month of December, though. While I hope that's the case, again, predictions and models, which are just that, predictions and models, are not necessarily showing that to be the case. But I think at least as we have the fantastic news of at least 2 different vaccines out there, there is a little bit of light at the end of this tunnel. But we're not out of this tunnel yet at this point.
So the rationale behind the dates is not that where we are today is necessarily an immediate concern, but the spike after the holidays. Is that?
I think it would be a combination. You know, when you look at 13.7% absentee rate for our staff, the fact that we are in hybrid 2 has given us flexibility. But that only goes so far, and we're asking people to do things consistently here that can't be sustained forever. And if we put further stress on that with a post-Thanksgiving spike, I'm afraid of a collapse.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If we put further stress on what we're doing right now with that post-Thanksgiving spike, I'm afraid of a collapse.
Collapse, that's what, okay.
So elaborate more for me, if you would, the capacity to conduct school operations. What does that mean?
All of the above. Do we have enough drivers for our buses? Do we have the mechanics to make sure that the fleet is safe? Do we have the food service cooks to be able to cook the food and deliver the food? Do we have teachers to teach? Do we have associates to work one-on-one with students? Do we have principals to lead the buildings? Do we have directors and managers to lead the departments? On any given day, any one of those things is in question.
Wouldn't that be true though with even online though? I mean, once if people, whether it's staff, I get we wouldn't be dealing with transportation or lunches, but if teachers are unable to perform their duty due to whether it's COVID or other illnesses, because when you look at the numbers, it looks like we have just as many staff out for other things, actually for more things than we do COVID, which I know this is the worst time of the year to, you know, when you talk about absentees, I mean, you're going to have it. So it's not, but I still see there could be an issue even if we're out online and not have, if that's the main concern about not having enough teachers, because I would assume it works a little different way when you do subs online. How would you roll into having a sub for somebody that's in the middle of a lesson? The next thing you know, it's hard to write lesson plans, and
Sure.
I'm assuming it's a lot different tasks involved.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point there. I think, you know, the point has been made that we're not seeing so much spread within school. It's more of within the community. The problem is our people are in the community, living in the community, and then they come together in schools, and then that continues to just exacerbate the problem. So to get to your question of where the difference is, the more that we have people at home, I guess, I think that the less likely they are to intermingle.
Well, in order to exacerbate the problem, you'd have to have school spread though. I mean, that's what we're not seeing is spread from our mask to mask within our school. That's why we all felt very confident. I shouldn't say we all, sorry. That's why I felt very confident as far as how we were doing before, as we're not seeing much as far as so basically we have what I would consider to be the safest environment within our buildings, within our walls, because we have structure, we have mask mandates, and we have supervision, and we have kids that are in the buildings. They're not out in this community that has a 20% positivity rate. They're not running around. They're not in daycares. They're not out with their friends without their masks on. I mean, you know what I mean? We provide that safe environment, and it's been shown through our data that we're not seeing spread between our kids on our mask to mask. I think most of our positive cases within our schools have been through policy violations, I'd say, as far as like people sitting too close together at lunch, not having their masks on, as far as staff members,
Yeah,
kids, that
agreed.
kind of thing. Yeah, right. So that's why I'm kind of going. It's a real tough one for me to say, hey, it's safer for us to close down and send everybody away when the safest place right now, it seems to be, is within these buildings. I mean, our kids don't get that structure outside. The younger kids, daycare, that's not safe at all. So to me, it's like you're throwing them out in this, what we think is a very dangerous situation with 20% positivity rates everywhere. And we're throwing them out into that and saying, hey, go out there, don't be safe because you're out in this 20% daycare and everything else, and then come back. So to me, it's like, hey, we have a stable environment. We keep them here until we can't. I mean, that's one thing we haven't done yet this year is do until we can't. So, and that's probably the biggest thing I've struggled with is we have not failed in any model. We've jumped and we've anticipated and we've projected and we've made mistakes as far as, I mean, we've lost a whole quarter of halftime school and we could look back and say, you know what, we probably could have made that through because our peers did. So, and I mean, and with our data that we have, if I look back and I project that data backwards and say, okay, if these are the lines we have and we would have done it, I have a hard time saying, okay. And so now we're sitting here at a disadvantage. We're sitting here with, if we were in a school that had been full-time this whole time and we were talking about this right now, I'd have a lot less of a problem with the recommendation saying, okay, an extra 2 weeks right now because we've had a solid school year is probably doable, but I don't know why. But the fact that we are behind, our kids are struggling, I have a hard time saying, hey, now we're going to push you further for 2 weeks out and make things even more difficult on everybody. And I don't even know if we can handle it. I don't know if we can do a full online, if we have the technology to do it. I mean, it's something we've never done. And that's a huge stretch. I mean, a huge stretch. It's a huge stretch with technology right now. So, and then with half the kids on it. So I don't think it's a viable option as far as that goes. I mean, it's last resort, absolutely. And you did say that. It's not easy, but it's not a decision that I'm willing to make as far as to sacrifice these kids' education. We're already way behind.
I would challenge that assumption.
Right.
I would say there's no data that shows that we're behind in any way, shape, or form.
I think if we have medians and we cut out curriculum, then I would say we're behind. And I'd say if we pare down our curriculum, then we're behind.
But you're assuming that our curriculum is equal to if the other peer districts that you were speaking of, where I would actually assume based on the quality and the caliber of our teachers, our curriculum is far better than theirs. So even when we pare it down, we're now on their level. So we're not behind.
Let's not compare their level then. Let's just stick with our high standard.
But that's
So
even
why
there.
are we
If we're
compromising
looking at
standards?
what happened in the first quarter, if we're looking at the actual data that comes out specifically from our high school, the grades that we were seeing were on par and in some cases much better than they'd seen in the previous year, as were the overall proficiency scores. Now, individual parents may not be seeing the same thing from their students, but on a whole, the student body was seeing better scores or equal to. So to say that they're behind, there's no validity in that. So, but since we're talking about our peers, my understanding is that we're one of only 2 school districts still.
He can go.
Well, one thing that we need to get a little bit better with is interrupting people and letting, when somebody has the table, they need to make sure that they are done before we just go on to a new topic, because that does get frustrating for people here at the board table, and it gets frustrating for people at home because we just go back and forth. So let's finish a topic, make sure somebody is done before we just jump up, please. Thank you. Tom, were you done or?
Yeah, he can have the floor.
Okay.
I'm fine.
My understanding is that we're one of only 2 school districts in the metro area that are still in person. Is that accurate? My understanding it's us and Bondurant.
I think beginning Monday, that would probably be accurate. Yeah.
So those peer districts that we were looking at have already made this change or are in process of making it.
Yes.
Is their data any worse than ours?
You actually have that. I shared with you the report from the Polk County Emergency Management meeting where it listed out basically the COVID-19 data for both students and staff. And I would say that for the most part, Des Moines different because it's kind of asterisks and no numbers, but for the most part, it's pretty on par when you factor in for enrollments in there. And that's available on the Polk County Health Department's website too. I did see it was posted there if anybody was wondering what we're talking about here.
I guess one question I'll throw out there, and this has been brought up by various parents and other people that work for the district. The concept of not making a wholesale change to online, but maybe being more selective based on where we have issues. It sounds like the main reason to switch to being fully online would be the staffing challenges. There's other side issues like community spread and just overall concern that the virus is out of control. But is that something that you see as a viable option, or are there reasons why that would not work to maybe say one school is looking pretty good, let's let them continue, versus another school that's in a challenging staffing position?
Here, in concept, that's not something that I have a hard disagreement with. The problem is when I look at our absentee, it's kind of all across the board. So I'm not sure how we get there. And at some point there would be an issue just in the continuity to be able to deliver instruction if some are doing one thing and some are doing the other, and there's an equity factor in there as well that could rear its head. But it's not a concept that we haven't looked at or thought about.
But logistically, that poses
right
challenges.
Right.
I mean, I have seen other peer districts that have had isolated situations in buildings where they've made that decision, probably very short term, but.
Right.
Anybody else have anything?
I would like to say a few things if that's okay. President Handy, this is Rick Powell, and what am I about to say is going to sound pretty hypocritical because I kind of been wavering on both sides, like I'm sure all of you. But like all of you have said previously, we have a tremendous staff. We have tremendous principals. We're so fortunate to have a fantastic superintendent, cabinet, all the way down. And I just always remind myself every day of that fact, and I'm sure that the other 6 of you do as well. I struggle personally. I'm going to tell you what I struggle with, but then I'm going to come back to saying I understand where Dirk's coming from. I struggle, especially at the elementary level with preschool through 5th grade. I just don't think they can learn unless there's an adult. I don't think they can learn remotely unless there's an adult sitting next to them, honestly. They don't get that at daycare. They don't get that, even if their parents work at home, they're probably working on their job. So I really struggle with our 8 elementary schools, thinking about going to remote because I just, in my mind, being a former teacher, I can't see them learning properly, even though we have fantastic staff members, because like I said, especially preschool, first, second, third, I don't know where you stop on the progression, but obviously the lower the age, they're going to have an adult next to them. And I don't know where the cutoff is, whether it's 6th grade, junior high, definitely the lower levels. And I also, like the rest of the board, got emails from saying that Mitchellville and Runnels maybe, at least their principals feel ready to continue. I think that's maybe where Chad was. That's on my mind. I also worry about being a former special ed teacher, all the IEPs and all the progress monitoring that are not being done, and how you would do that remotely. That's kind of hard to do, because those of you that don't know what progress monitoring, you're giving them like little probes or sample quizzes for a certain amount of time, and you kind of watch them do it so they're not cheating. And I don't know how you do that remotely. But it's law that you have to progress monitor every 2 weeks. And I don't know how I'm sure every school district's got the same concerns. I'm just, like I said, venting my educator concerns. So like I said, I struggle with the remote part of it. But on the other side of it, like I said, I was going to be a hypocrite here. I know that you can only ask for waivers, Dr. Lupnick, for 2 weeks.
Correct.
But I'm kind of wondering why we're not going clear to the middle of January because of all the holidays that are coming up. And I know that would require at least three waivers, but I suppose you can only ask for one at a time. And I don't know how quickly you get approval. To my knowledge, nobody's been denied at this point. I could be wrong. But again, I'm not asking, I'm like our new president said, I want to finish my comments. But when I look at what you presented, Dr. Lupnick, I don't know why Altoona Elementary is so high with staff absentee. It looks like they've been high for quite a while. And 4 Mile at 10 and Willowbrook at 9.5. That's very alarming. So I understand the motion, and I understand we need to protect our teachers because they're our best, quality. We can't have a good education without our great staff and great administrators. And so even though I shared my concerns about remote learning, I'm going to support our administration with their proposal because I think it's the right thing to do at this time. And I think not only should we worry about all of our teachers, which we do, and all of our associates and all of our principals and bus drivers and cooks and all those people involved, but we also have to take care of our leader here. And he is, I'm sure, probably stressing more than anybody in these 4 towns that we live in. And you can see it. And I'm with you, Dr. Lupnick, and I appreciate everything you do, which is, I don't know when you have time to do all this, but so again, I apologize for being kind of a hypocrite. I have my concerns. I worry about elementaries learning remotely. And that probably go up even higher because sometimes, I don't know, every kid is different. Every kid learns differently. And I just worry. I know our teachers will deliver. They'll do their part. There's no question about that. But when a kid, whatever age, has a question, it's hard. I've been talking to some of my, I used to be employed by the Des Moines schools, and they've been in remote for forever. And but they're getting it done. It may not be popular, but I know it's the thing to do. So I know I'm talking around circles here, but what I'm saying is I have a lot of concerns, but I understand the motion and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Can I jump in real quick? I'm sorry, I don't want to cut anybody off. Did the Polk County Emergency Meeting give any type of model or projection about what they think the impact post Thanksgiving is going to be percentage wise? Or are they thinking it's going to, are we talking 25%? Are we talking maintain at 20? What's the?
Yeah, they presented some data. They asked us not to share the actual graphs, but I can tell you that roughly we're at 500 cases, new cases per day, and their models showed that at least tripling.
And did they give any type of time frame as far as?
Yeah, I was just going to go there into the beginning of January. That's kind of the yeah.
So once this spike starts, they don't anticipate it to stop until we're into the second semester, essentially.
Potentially, but again, models are models and predictions are predictions, and if we all behave and do our part, that's going to have a role on that too.
In your mind, sorry, I want to make sure that I phrase this correctly, and I'll get back closer to the microphone. In your mind, if these projections and models were not there from the experts from Polk County, or are we that close to a critical failure that we need to make this change regardless?
I'm trying to understand what you're asking me for sure. So disregarding the predictive models.
If this weren't the week before Thanksgiving,
Right.
So let's say that we had this number first week of October. So we wouldn't be looking at an imminent event like Thanksgiving and the projections.
Mm-hmm.
If these were our numbers at that point in time, would you be recommending that we maintain hybrid 2, or would you recommend that because of what's going on that we switch for 2 weeks?
I think probably I would be saying, let's maintain hybrid 2 and meet weekly to look at the data as it changes. If there wasn't something like the holiday right there and the predictive models that have gone.
So it's a unique circumstance.
Another question, if I can jump in. Okay. In terms of the waiver, that's something that we can apply for, and then we can choose whether or not we use that correctly.
Correct. Yep.
So we could apply for the waiver for those 2 weeks potentially. So hypothetical, and we could wait and see how things go, and then we could use the waiver if we need it.
Yes, but I think that there's all kinds of legwork that would need to be done to ramp up for remote learning that our staff would need to be doing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if it was in limbo like that, that would make it kind of difficult.
And there's only 3 days of class left.
So I guess in line with that, what is the plan? What's that look like right now? If we approve this recommendation, what's the process for them getting ready for being able to do all?
Sure. There's a couple things, and I'm guessing Joellen's going to jump in here. So I'll start and then defer to what she wants to say there. Some of this with hybrid 2, even though we know that there are flaws there has been a lot of remote learning and remote activity already happening. So it's not like teachers haven't had their toes dipped here in some way. There's also been some professional development, and there I see Joellen's face, so I'll let her talk a little bit.
Actually, that was exactly what I was going to talk about, is that as we have been moving forward, while it is our goal to have face-to-face instruction, we know that both the hybrid 2 pathway and the remote pathway involve some sort of online learning. So we started this summer, and I think I shared with you that over 400 teachers participated in the Jumpstart PD in order to add to and strengthen remote learning. So that is something that we've had ongoing professional development. We've had opportunities for the teachers who are teaching remotely to meet with other teachers to reflect on these past few weeks, what has worked well, what types of things they've learned that will engage students and advance their learning as we go through. We've begun something now called Workshop Wednesdays. And these are optional for teachers, but we are holding workshops during the morning, during the late start, and in the afternoon during early dismissal to share techniques for remote learning and to have teachers share the practices that are working the best. Grades 6 through 12 are using Canvas as the platform to house the courses that they're taking, and we've added some things with the calendar and the syllabus to help clarify and provide some consistency and continuity for that. We have created a Google site for all elementary buildings, so we have a centralized location where they could post their Google Classrooms for people to access. And we are building that off of our current remote site so that we will take what's already been established. So no teacher needs to feel like they're reinventing the wheel. We have these things currently established. The site is in progress, but I'm happy to share the link with you so you can see what that design looks like and how we are moving forward with that. So we're kind of 2 feet in the hybrid 2 model and looking at a potential move to remote should that happen as an extension of hybrid 2. Right now in hybrid 2, we have 1 day of learning at school and another day of learning at home. Remote learning expands that learning at home, and we're providing professional development to make that stronger. We know it's not perfect and we know it's not the same, but given the challenging circumstances that we're in, I feel our teachers are prepared and have done tremendous quality in getting that made available to students. So even if we wouldn't ever use this site, it still will make our hybrid 2 stronger. So really working on those strategies that will help us kind of morph that learning in school and learning at home and making that more seamless and having more continuity with that as we move forward.
So it sounds like we're not completely unprepared for this. We've been putting things in place over time, but there is some kind of transition that needs to happen where we can't just say go online tomorrow. What does that look like? I know some other schools have done like an asynchronous day, like an at-home day where they're kind of doing independent learning and allow teachers to get prepared, I guess, for the switch.
Yeah, and I think as I was reflecting on that, I do think that would be appropriate for moving forward. One thing that advances us, and Rick, I completely agree with your comments. The younger the students are, the more challenging it is. But one difference between now and the fall is that teachers have been working with students and teaching them to log on and teaching them to use the QR code and the clever grid on the icon in Google Drive so that we're not teaching them remotely how to do that. They've already had some practice in being able to do that. Having said that, when we get a student who moves from the building into remote learning, it takes about 24 hours before we have everything set up for them to be ready to go with remote learning. So I do feel a day of collaboration and planning would be appropriate and supportive should we ever get to that point in our model.
Thank you.
Joellen, a question. I know that we've had mixed reception as far as how the hybrid 2 works on its online days. Some families love it, some families hate it. For this type of model for the proposed 2 weeks, would that be similar to what we've seen there, or is it going to be similar to more what the 13% of students who are currently fully online have been doing?
The second one.
And how has that reception been to that program?
I think it's been pretty positive. As a matter of fact, I was going to share with you just a few things so that you could see what that looked like. And if I share the site with you, I think that you will be able to see that. When I meet with the teachers every Wednesday, the remote teachers, they often share with me emails that they've received from families that, this is really hard work. And some days you just think, oh my goodness. And then they'll get such an uplifting email that really propels them forward. So, our families have been great partners with this as we move forward. And we have learned a lot. I mean, it has a lot of room to grow, and we have learned a lot and have accommodated some of that growth as we have moved forward.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things. I've had discussions, I've had phone calls, emails. I'm kind of like Rick on this, I'm going to vote for this. I hate voting for this. What I'm going to say in front of God and everybody that I said on the front end, this is clearly a sign of the guy not running again. But Polk County Health, I know there's probably good people there doing their work. But on the beginning of the school year, we had a grid that showed it skyrocketing then too. And I called it, I said, there's no way. I said it actually in proverbial East Side language. And that did not come to pass. I do think this is a different time. I do think we're looking at, then we're like, heck, it's still warm. It's summer. It's warm. I don't have a health degree, but I'll be amazed if that thing went through the roof. It didn't. It went the other way, went down. And you're sitting in the meetings, Dirk, and I get it. And they're sounding it's like, well, it's your decision, but here's a bunch of scary stuff. I do think it's different. Common sense tells you, okay, now we're heading into the flu season. It's cold. We're cooped up. We're inside. Going to be this family. I'm like Tom. I look at our numbers in the school. I think, man, we're doing a great job. It's like 0.5% on the students. Positivity. That's fantastic. And our staff, yeah, that's higher, but still that looks good in comparison. And it's not being transmitted at school. It's so far mostly community spread. But I guess, we are a public entity, and I don't want to be an outlier, I guess. It would be kind of nice if we could do it, but I think you also got to look, okay, Monday, we're the only school in the area that's not virtual. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration too. And I guess, community spread we're a community organization. We need to look at that. And that's, I guess, where I'm coming from. All those people that I've corresponded with, I get it. And you ought to see the emails we get. Single parents, a widowed mother who that's who I was referring to. She's like, I don't get this Southeast Polk thing. My husband was a Southeast Polk grad. We had to move here. She has baby and 2 small kids in school, single parent, widowed a year ago. He passed away with hardly any, just a matter of weeks from diagnosis to gone. I think, what of that poor woman and everything she has to go through. And now, somehow with a single parent like that. And I talked to a single father the other day on the phone, and he's, look, I don't work at home. I have to work. I take care of these kids. His were elementary kids too. And I know that all weighs in dirt because I think he's on a lot of those things. He sees the emails too, but I hate it, but I think it's probably what we should be doing, at least at this point. And hopefully it won't be long, but I hope like heck we get through this Thanksgiving thing. We come back and our numbers look good enough that we can get back in. But I guess, we'll just have to see what it looks like at that time.
Anybody else?
I guess just one simple question. Dirk, I think we all trust your opinion. I personally have infinite respect for you and think you're probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. Is this what you think is best for our district?
I do. I would echo Gary's comments. I hate every part of this. And I think I've been clear about that from the very beginning, that we wanted to do everything we could to avoid having to go fully remote. And now here we sit.
Yep.
I have a few questions, and if anybody else wants to jump in again, feel free. So curriculum that's online right now, so those students, is that the same curriculum that they're getting in the classroom? So if I chose to be 100% right now, am I getting the same curriculum that's going into that's the classroom teachers now?
Yes, we are following the same units, using the same materials and using the same assessments. I will say that we were off a few days. It started to even itself out because we started a little bit later, and then we were in hybrid 2 for a while, and then we were in hybrid 1. But I would say we are within a week or so of where we are in our curriculum. Yes.
All right. And my understanding is that online's doing standard-based grading versus regular grading in the classroom. Is that accurate?
We're all doing standards-based grading.
Okay.
We converted into a letter grade for grades 3 on up, but the district, we met with each grade level, each remote learning team, like the 3rd graders met with the 3rd grade teachers from Clay, from Centennial, from Runnels, et cetera. And we talked about grades for students who'd been back and forth between the pathways. We're using our proficiency scales and standards-based learning to describe learning for all students. And then we convert that to a grade for students in 3rd grade and above. So that's consistent in both pathways.
So those students that are coming back, as my understanding is they'll come back to their original teacher.
Yes, some of them were not assigned an original teacher if they started in the remote pathway because the schools left that open-ended so that they could balance classrooms in the different hybrid formats. But if they were in school at one time and then moved into the remote pathway, if they go back, they will have the same teacher at elementary.
So how do you think that transition will go when you're maybe a week, couple weeks different, getting an transition to with another teacher, especially trying to bring them in, and then going 2 weeks online, and then if we have to go back to hybrid 2, now we switch back to another teacher. That's where I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see what you're saying, Brett. No, that isn't, I'm sorry. I didn't interpret the question. So
Maybe I asked 2 different things in there because I'm used to, I usually do that. So I apologize if I asked 2 different things.
Not what you're saying now though. Okay, so students who are in the remote pathway right now will stay with those remote teachers if we go to remote learning, so that there won't be movement back and forth between them.
Okay, so the teachers that have their students now that's who they're going to have, and then the remote learners that are currently in are going to have the same teacher.
Yeah. I was thinking about if they go back like in March, they would have the same teacher that they had. So I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. So right, you're exactly right. We had that same conversation, and we do think that would be too much movement for the students. Now, we do have some students in the remote pathway who are on extended quarantine, meaning they're going to be back in the classroom, so they would be with their classroom teacher. And we also have a significant number who've joined recently. So if they're a recent joiner and that decision was made, we would probably have a discussion with the building principals to see where the best placement would be. But for those who've been in remote learning for the long haul, they will stay with those teachers.
I want to jump in on one
Sure.
thing just to make sure. To clarify that I know exactly what Joellen is saying, but I know some people may have heard. When she referenced Mark, she's talking about families that have chosen the remote pathway now, 100%. We have no intent. Like I said, 2 weeks is hopefully the absolute maximum that we have to do this. That's more, she was talking about a family that had chosen the remote pathway now, and with the idea, I'm guessing maybe that by March a vaccine's out there and people feel more safe to not be 100% online by choice.
Yes, that is right.
Then one of the other questions is, we talked about a little bit when Rick had brought it up, is the lower grades. How do we, and I hate to compare this to March, but I'm going to, just because I think there's some, obviously we'd have some struggles with it. And it's one, attendance, getting people to make sure that they're online, because one of the pieces that we're missing, I feel, and I've brought this up many times, and this isn't personal, and I hate bringing up flaws in things, but as those that know me, I have to, ask to, get down to the bottom of it and just speak what's true. But we didn't have a very good attendance time with the remote and I get it wasn't mandatory, but how are we going to assure that our attendance and that it's just not a check-in, here's your assignment, and then have your parents do it? Because the problem that I got is the daycares, they're not going to be able to teach all their kids. And I know we don't have to worry about daycares, and that's not our problem as a school district, but it does end up causing problems for our students. So when I look at it based on our students, I guess we do have an issue, a responsibility to make sure that they are getting taught something. And so when those kindergarten, first, second, and I'll draw the line, I'll say even K through third, probably are the ones that probably in my mind would struggle the most. I mean, you can just put it wherever you want to, but how are we going to assure as a school district that they are getting it? Because turning in a paper and not having that, being able to be with that student daily or even every other day or whatever we choose to do. And this goes really high school. It's all around, but the biggest concern is those younger kids that don't have the time. They can't, their attention spans, so short that you can't even figure out how to get them to eat their hot dogs at lunch because they want to go play with their friend or whatever. The parents working, all those things are a big concern for me, as it was back when we were talking about this in August or July, June, whenever it was, getting ready for them. So I guess I need some comfort along with all the other families that are wanting the in-person part of it. How can we guarantee that we're actually going to do our students good and make sure they're getting that education? Because what's going to happen is parents are going to work, the kids are going to go to daycare, and then mom and dad have to come home at night and they have to do what the teachers usually do in a 7-hour day, 8-hour day, without specials or whatever they do. And it's actually 12-hour days. So I'm not offending anybody, but in a time that you're actually with the teacher, those parents now have to do. And I just don't see how we can do that, checking in with the kids here and there and then, periodically. So I'm rambling on that piece. I'll let you guys answer that if you can.
Well, and there's a multitude of ways, and I won't go into that, but I would agree it's a concern for us as well. And I would say pre-K to, those are such critical levels. And so we've given that some extra attention. I would invite you after the board meeting is over. I did send you a link. Our second grade remote learners just finished a unit on ecosystems and habitats. And so we had them use Flipgrid to share what they have learned. So we're using more interactive technology tools to hear from students and capture their learning. I attended a 5th grade lesson today where I relearned how to divide a decimal by a decimal. I had to pay really close attention, but I've just been amazed. We got whiteboards for all the students and they were able to hold up their answers and show their learning and address what's there. So it isn't the same as being in the building face to face. I would agree with that. But I do think that we're using every tool at our disposal to strengthen the learning as much as we possibly can in the remote environment. A lot of the students that are there have health concerns and conditions that wouldn't permit them to be in the building. And we want to make sure that they are advancing and getting the learning that they need. And we've had tremendous support from families. The students are doing a great job. Our guidance counselors at the school are calling families to make sure that they need help, if they need help getting logged on and checking on the absences and getting folks engaged. So Joe often says all hands on deck, and it really is all hands on deck. It's a lot of work to get it done, but it is something that all of us value, you at the board table and all the staff at Southeast Polk, and they're working at everything they can possibly do to make this a positive learning experience for kids in a very challenging situation.
Thank you. I got just a couple more things here and then I'll turn it over to someone else. So today we're being asked to look at the recommendation of remote learning. And again, I'll say, I do have the most respect for our administration on this and, trying to make decisions. And that's kind of what we all have to do here too. So we're all in kind of the same boat. And I think we can respectfully agree and disagree or whatever we want to do. But we're being asked to make a decision for remote learning today that carries us through December 11th. But then our next meeting is on December 3rd. And then we're
17.
okay. So okay. So I guess let me rethink that then, because I had on here that we were in the 3rd, but
Even that date is flexible.
so yeah, our meeting won't be then until, so the 17th, which would start us back into either an emergency board meeting somewhere in that time frame to discuss this again, which we discuss this all the time. And I mean, I don't think we really get anywhere other than we sit up here and argue with each other and try to debate this out as best as we can. Obviously, I'm not for remote learning. I'm just going to come out and say it. And people can take it personally or whatever and say, I'm not for this person or that person. It has nothing to do with this. I just, deep down, I think we're doing things that we need to do inside the school. And I get it. It takes a community to do it. Iowa hasn't been the best role models for our country, but Southeast Polk, I think, truly is. We've got issues. I'm not going to sit here and say this has been easy, because I know it hasn't. We've got staff that's working as best as they can because all the changes that we make, and I think changing all the time when we're at a rise, but here and I'm going to say it, and it's going to make people mad, but you know what? It's the truth. And if you don't like it, don't vote for me next time. I'll tell you that, because we've extended this for the football season so we could get those football players to the championship, which I agree. I think that's part of the vote that we did, and you're not going to make my mind any different. But now we're waiting until after Thanksgiving. If it's so important to go online, why didn't we do it immediately? And that's the problem that I have. And so I'm going to leave it at that. But I guess I just want us to really consider that we have other options. I think we could extend our Thanksgiving break to make it a little bit longer to get through what we think is going to be a hot spot, because we don't know. Every time we come to the table, we're just guessing, and I get it. I mean, I wish I had that magic ball to say this is the way it's going to be, but we've talked about this over and over, that the virus is going to be here. And I guarantee you, December 17th, whatever day that we come back here and vote, we're going to go through the same things again. And we're not going to go back. If we go to remote learning now, we're not going back. I guarantee you, because the numbers are going to go up. If you think that vaccine is going to come out in January, I'm sorry, we're mistaken. It's going to go to healthcare workers, people on the front lines that are actually essential employees. And that's just my feeling. Where it's not going to come to the teachers, it's not going to come to the janitors, it's not going to come to us 7 sitting up here on the board. And we're going to be sitting here. So if you make this decision, you're going to probably have to make it until the rest of the year, which I am completely against. And I want to figure out ways. Yes, we are the outliers. We sit here and say, well, just because all these, we sat here and argued back and forth. Well, we don't care what Waukee's doing, or do we care what Waukee's doing, or West Des Moines? Now we're coming back to what's the others doing? And I'm going to tell you, Iowa Health and Polk County Health do not agree on anything. If you look at their things, they're not agreeing on any of this. And I've said this before, we've obviously picked who we're going to follow, and I respect that. I just don't agree with it. I think we can look at other options. For me, I'd be really considering maybe extending our holiday if we're concerned about that piece of who's going to be with who and what. And that's part of the problem is when you do go out, I get that you're going to be out at your grandparents or whatever. And I guarantee you, people say they're going to not be with their family, and I'm not going to sit here and say you're not. But as Governor Reynolds has said, she trusts Iowans to do it. They haven't done it yet. They have not done it. We have not done anything outside, but what we are doing are we are trying things inside. And that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of the things that we've done inside. And we're just not giving it chances to work. We switch back and forth. So I will leave it at that. And I hope you guys make a decision, that's best for the Southeast Polk community, not for one side or the other, just whatever's best for the Southeast. Anybody else have anything?
I'll say a few more things just to extend this meeting a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of the things that everybody said tonight. There's not a clear right answer here, to be completely candid. I mean, we're in uncharted territory and we don't know if those predictions are going to play out or not. So it's really hard to know what the right direction is at this point. I would love to see an option where we could, if we could make it work, where we could have certain schools where there's issues, move into the online and have the areas where things are going well, be able to stay in person. But at the same time, if that's not something that we can logistically do at this point, then I do put a lot of trust in Dr. Lepnick and our team and the recommendations. I mean, I maybe disagree a little bit, Brett, with what you were saying about if we go this way, we'll never come back. I mean, my sincere hope is that we don't have to wait for the vaccine for this to start to come back down, but we don't know right now whether we're at the mountaintop or if we're still climbing. And so I see where that's the big concern is, yeah, we're keeping our students very safe. We're not a worse place to be for our students than being out in the community. But if we can't handle it from a staffing perspective, then it's going to fall apart on us at some point. So we can choose to be ahead of that, or we can wait till that happens. So that's kind of where my mind is. I see all sides of it, and I don't like it. But at the same time, if that's what we need to do to get over the next few weeks, then that's what we need to do.
All right.
And we can only apply for a waiver every 2 weeks. That's the reason it's the time. That's all we can apply for.
2 week segments at a time. I want to echo part of Brett's comments because I think he's right on point. I think we as Southeast Polk, our staff, our students, our administration, and in large part our families have done the right things and have been successful. And that's why our numbers are as low as they have been, pardon me, as it slides down my nose. The problem is that we are part of the Polk County community, which has failed. We're part of the Central Iowa community, which has failed. And we're part of the Iowa community at large, which has in large part failed to take the necessary steps needed to keep the numbers low, like we've seen in our own schools. We are not immune from those failures, unfortunately. And while I think we would all urge our community at large, both the Southeast Polk community and the greater communities that I mentioned, to work on the mitigating factors to try and get us back to where we need to be. Because 6 weeks ago, we were looking great. 6 weeks ago, we were at 5.8%. And now we're at 20. It happened that fast. And that's not on us as Southeast Polk. That's on the greater community. But unfortunately, we're not immune to that. So I don't see a way around this at this point in time, unfortunately.
Let's see. I'll give my last spiel. So perspective, this has driven me crazy since day one. And I think everybody's pretty clear on that one. And I think that comes from perspective. So as an essential worker, as a healthcare professional, I've been at this since March. So I don't know if there's anybody in this room that says they've worked with the community since March, every day. So we've seen it. It was nerve wracking in March. We've worked through it. We know the mask thing works. We know our hand washing works. If one of us goes down, we would have been done. So that's where the essential worker came in. So the doctor's office that you go to now, your nurses, your doctors, they don't quarantine on positive exposure. So they don't. Because if they did, we'd have no healthcare workers. So it's pretty easy to keep things going. So we sit here and we say, hey, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe to do this. Well, we take our most vulnerable populations and we treat them with people that have positive exposures. So, and we do it every single day. So that's why this has been very, very hard on me. And we look at these numbers and we say, yeah, positivity rates and cases per 100,000. And what does that mean? So it means, just like you said, the community is not doing what it's supposed to. Our school buildings are a safe place. And it just drives me crazy when we have to say the answer to this is to let them go, close down, go remote. What are we accomplishing? We're not adding to community spread. So we are not adding, we're not making the system any worse than it is. Again, we're doing better than. So actually improving what it could be. So by turning us loose and shutting down schools, we can actually be making the problem worse. So we take our, 2,200 high school kids and throw them out in the community. So probably 12, probably 18 of them, 100 of them have driver's license. So now we said, hey, it's safer for you to be out on your own than it is to be in our buildings with their masks on. That's why I cannot wrap my head around this. And as I go to work every single day and I talk to the providers next door, they're doing COVID testing. And it's the same thing. We all just beat our heads in the wall and we said, why are we attacking schools? Why are we blaming schools for what's going on around them? So staffing issues, like I said, could be very easily solved. You treat them, they are essential workers already. The same rules apply with me and with every doctor and nurse that we see every day that are working every day, and we apply the same rules. So then your staffing issues go away. So as long as we're asymptomatic, we get to go to work every single day. So I just don't understand when we stop treating education as essential. I sit on a board of education. I don't think we've talked education this whole year. I mean, it drives me crazy. I look back at last year, it was school improvement plans. I mean, it's pretty cool. And I sit back and think of those days and I realize they're totally different times. But what we're not doing right now is thinking and judging and basing all of our decisions on what is best for the kids. We talk about positivity rates and numbers and all this kind of stuff. Who is watching out for the kids? It's our job. And we have a responsibility to our taxpayers. We have a responsibility to those kids first and foremost. And that's why it drives me batty. So these kids that have mental illness, these kids that have food insecurities, the suicide attempts, Woodward Granger, the kid that got ran over in the parking lot. I mean, these are terrible, terrible things and things that we have to worry about every single day with our kids. COVID's not one of them. So that's not one of my top 5. It's not in any top 5 as far as percentages. There's so many other things. And we're failing these kids by not providing them a safe environment, not letting them access to a safe environment. So I struggle with our decision to move back from hybrid 1 to hybrid 2. Our numbers were looking good. Everything's going well. Kids are doing great. We had all these emails saying, hey, our kids are so awesome. And I see it in my own kids. She went from being happy and bubbly and then boom, right back at it. So the depression sets in. It's tough. It's very, very tough. And it's tough on 6,800 kids. So this is not normal. I really, really struggle with us taking away the one thing that we can provide them that to me is safety. So if you don't think your kid is safe in school, yes, we have the virtual option. Or if there's people at home that we have a virtual option. So I just don't understand. I think our staff members are safer in school. And that's obvious by the numbers that we look at too. Our quarantines and our exposures from outside, what is it, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 40 to 1? I mean, it's astronomical as far as what we're doing. It's the outside that is shutting us down. And it frustrates me to no end. But then at the same time, I'm like, why are we shutting down something that is keeping our staff and our kids safer? Why are our numbers so much lower? It just, I really, really struggle with it. And like I said, every day, go to work, it's the same thing. It's, like I said, so my perspective, I'm sorry if I get a little bit passionate, a little bit mouthy about it all, but it drives me crazy because I look at all this stuff and I say, yeah, absentee rates, that's great. Yep, it's not good. The community is stealing 10% of our kids from us. And we are the only state right now in the country that is red with flu. We're the only one. So not only are we battling COVID-related absences, we're battling flu-related absences. So this could be as bad as it gets for us, and we're still doing well. We're struggling. We're on the borderline, right? But I'm not going to shut down school. I'm not going to shut it down and say, hey, guys, you're on your own. It's virtual. I mean, especially like Rick, K through 5. I struggle because there's no makeup. When are these kids going to, there's no redo. They're not going to take first grade again next year, second grade again next year. Anything we don't teach them this year, they lose because we move on. We move on to the curriculum next year. So we don't have those building blocks anymore. So I really, really do struggle. So, and I know it's difficult, everybody. This is not what anybody wanted. It's just as a healthcare professional, as me going out and being with this all year, these numbers are numbers. Look at your kids. Look at what we're doing to our kids. That needs to be our focus, is educating our kids. It's the only reason we're here. So I've said mine. I'm done.
Just have a clarification if anybody else has anything.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Dr. Lopnick. Tom brought up a good point. They're talking about food insecurity issues. Have we visited a program about having the drive-up meal drop-offs or something like that during those 2 weeks to make sure that the kids that are food insecure still have those options?
Yeah, we've talked contingency on that, and there would be, yes, a
Okay.
food program.
Amy's ready to roll that out.
The USDA extended that through June, so yeah.
No, I guess I was more concerned that we're prepared to put that in place starting the 30th if this is what we choose to do.
We will be, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else before I ask my clarifications?
Dr. Lupnick, I know that you had Mr. Horton and Dr. Belger working on this, but if we do adopt this proposal, will the teaching staff be allowed the flexibility of teaching at home, or do they have to report to work? Because I think they need to be safe, like we're trying to keep our students personally. Did you guys make a decision on that if we approve this?
Yeah, I have not received that yet. As far as an official recommendation, I can say that we'll accommodate staff for sure. There may be times where we definitely need people on site, and there may be times where it makes more sense not to. Again, we're talking about right now a short-term
Right.
scenario here.
Yeah, I was
so,
just asking for the flexibility.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there any way, and I'm sorry, but is there any way that we can make exceptions for 504s, IEPs, our special needs students, so that even though the majority of our district, 98% or whatever it is, would be online, we'd still have the ability to have those students present because of those particular needs?
Yeah, it's already being done. It's a case-by-case basis. It depends on what's written on the page on the IEP. I'm forgetting now. I think it's the I page. Is that right, Joellen?
That is accurate.
So that would still exist even through a full 100%
it's
virtual?
Federal law, correct.
Excellent. I know that was a big concern for you earlier. So
Last chance. Well, just a clarification though so the vote is for online until the 11th. December 14th, what can families plan on? Are they coming back to AB? Are they coming back 100% online? Because that hasn't been clarified. All there's on the motion is that we're open until the 11th. And we need to know what families, because I know what's going to happen. We're going to have a special election before which don't necessarily agree, but obviously the way it's set out is it's only a choice. It's only one choice that we've got. So I know it puts people on a spot here to make a decision, but we say it's for only 2 weeks. Again, we're planning on what's happening in the future for going to online, but yet are we prepared to make a decision for what's going to happen December 14th when we're online? You see what I'm saying? So we're kind of,
Or we have a special.
Yeah, there's two ways you can go about that. And I actually would recommend that you don't make a decision tonight, but that's completely up to you guys. We could have a special meeting through December 10th. Right now, the governor extended her emergency proclamation. So by our resolution, you could still have me make the decision as well, whichever the board was comfortable with. And I'm good either way.
Would it be a bad idea to move our meeting from the 17th to the 10th? Just asking,
And we could do it.
because Brett brings up a real good point.
but it still doesn't give enough time for teachers to plan, families to plan, and that's what we're getting into. When we make these decisions is we're thinking, I get it, it's not our decision, or we shouldn't really have to worry about what families do, but we do have to worry about families do, because we're asking them to change. We're asking teachers to change. They have children. They have, they've got to find daycare. If we have them go to class like they would every day, their kids aren't going to be in school. So we have to, there's a lot of things that we don't think about.
Well, I think he kind of covered with the Polk County numbers and what their emergency management meeting said. So we go into that part of the 2 weeks and see what the numbers are doing. And if hospitals are still full or whatever's going on, I mean, you listen to what's going on in Polk County at a minimum. And then also you're going to be getting feedback from your staff, are you not?
Certainly.
Post Thanksgiving.
What happens if the numbers over Thanksgiving start to decrease? Just things to think about. So I'm gonna.
How about
I think-
Monday the 7th? I mean, we don't have to meet on Thursdays, do we?
This was how far out are the projections right now?
Well, what's the gestation period? Well, the projections he was saying go to mid-January. So that's,
I mean, that's what we're basing our recommendation off of.
what's the gestation for when we would see if those numbers are accurate? It's like 10 days,
I think,
isn't it?
isn't the average 5 days?
Is it 5 or I thought it was 7 to 10.
I think 2 to 10 is what I've seen the most.
Well,
but-
then,
We're trying to get
Fine.
tighter here, Dirk, not further
All
away.
Around the 5th.
And here's why I say that is because if we know that we should start seeing the reality of what these projections are versus what the reality will be, if we know we should start being able to see that on the 7th, why don't we tack our meeting for a day after that, which would be the 8th, which would be a Tuesday, yes?
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because we can see, hopefully by then, if we're seeing, is it steady? Is it going up? Is it going down? And then we can make a more informed decision. And then it also then gives 5 days. I wish it were more, but it would give us anywhere from 5 to 6 days for families to plan on what's going to happen on the 14th. So I think that would be the best way to do it, because it gives a time to see if the projections actually measure out or if it's redundant or false. Pick your narrative. Does that make sense to everybody?
Projections don't mean anything. So like I said, if we'd have followed those earlier, we wouldn't be in school right now. We'd be virtual all year. We'd be sitting at home on our couches doing nothing.
Yeah, and
So-
not to, make this a longer meeting, but just, I would probably say Dirk and I and Chad can talk about this if we meet sometime, but I just wanted to bring it to our attention that we're
Yeah, that's a really good point.
guessing on both sides, so we gotta.
And I like Rick's idea of moving a regular meeting so we don't create another meeting in December,
Right.
which is already a tough.
Any other pieces to the return for learn that we need to discuss? Okay, with that, Karen, ready for roll?
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Dramatic pause. No.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Krell.
Yes.
Recommendation passes. Appreciate the respectful dialogue there. All right, topics for discussion. We have superintendent's report.
You bet. I'll be brief. You've got the attachment in your agenda there. A couple of things. The official national blue ribbon ceremony for Altoona Elementary happened since our last meeting. Like several other things with this pandemic, it was virtual, and our people didn't get to actually go to Washington D.C. and have the experience that normally goes along with that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a well-deserved honor and a really cool experience for them. So a couple other things activity-wise, our cross-country team finished up strong at the cross-country state meet. Girls finished in the top 5, had a couple of boys individually ran strong races. So we're very proud of them. Football playoffs, the championship game is tomorrow night. And again, Brett, respectfully, no decision and no recommendation that has come from this administration has taken activities into account whatsoever. And I know that cynical people may not believe that, but that's the truth. I would have felt at any time that things need to be shut down, I would have been knocking on all 7 of your doors, knowing that would shut everything else down as well. We're extremely proud of the work that they've done, and I wish them luck and hope we bring back a state title tomorrow night. The Black and Gold Gala was a success. I don't have the final fundraising numbers, but I'll push them forward when I do get those. Again, it was an online way of doing things versus the in-person, but I know that I know there's some pretty cool things, and I didn't win any of those. That's what I know. And then the final thing on just kind of good news, over the last 2 weeks, we have had the kickoff of 2 of our major projects, the 6th, 7th grade building and the multipurpose stadium steering committee meetings. We're starting to get into the design and starting to put together a schedule and start to look what these things look like. And I think those are 2 things that are going to be just great additions to the district. And it's fun to be part of the ground floor right now. It seems like forever away, but it's going to be something where I sit here hopefully and say, remember when I said we just started that project, and now it's there and we're standing in it. So, without boring you to death, you can see that the monthly meetings are mostly the same. Tom, you said something that I couldn't agree more with. The focus of school this year, while it's still education, we have not been able to put the time and the things that are deserving into those things that we normally do, like the improvement plans and in the nuts and bolts of education, what we're all about, because this darn virus has taken over everything, and it just affects literally all the things that we do, and it just it's relentless. So you can see those meetings where normally it might be a lot more focused on community things and business partnerships and things that we might do. We just can't do that right now because it's just not possible. So instead, the other things kind of take over. I do want to end with the fiscal integrity piece there. I mentioned that the capital project's getting started. Gary Haynes and I are also going to be meeting here within the next week or so to talk about our normal projects, those things that, like the roof projects and the things that constantly need to be done so that they don't get lost in the shuffle with the large things that are out there too. So that's something there. And then clearly we took a big step forward with the bond and selling of the bonds, and then the action tonight to describe that agent. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Nothing directly related to the document, but I guess a question that came up from the governor's proclamation and then from the Polk County emergency meeting information you sent us earlier. I know that we've suspended all activities, intramural and such, athletics and activities for our junior high and lower. With Polk County's recommendation, will we be taking those steps as well with our high school, or is that yet to be determined?
Well, part of that, for 2 weeks, it was just determined with that vote, because once it's virtual, then that turns everything off that is not virtual. So that would put that on pause. After that, I'm not sure where that goes. What Adam's referring to is that letter that I shared with everyone, asking for a conference to pause winter activities until a further date. It really didn't have an end time on it. I'm not sure where that goes. Like I think it's been brought up tonight, they don't technically have any authority over us in something like that. They're asking for help. And I'm 100% sure that I'll be in discussions with our CIML peers over the next 24 hours to figure out what happens next. And I'll certainly keep you informed. And obviously we're not going to make decisions without having the board aware and involved with that.
Anything else for Dr. Lupnick? Yeah, thank you. Looks like IASB UEN annual meeting. Is this Rick and Dr. Lupnick? Or who wants to
It's
start?
Rick.
Just Rick? Okay.
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to take part in this. I learned a lot, and I learned how great our district is and how thankful we should be for all of our resources and our again, great teachers and administrators and curriculum director and Mr. Horton, who oversees so many things, and everybody, because you literally get to listen to almost every, I think every school district was represented. I don't have facts, but there was 187 participants in this Zoom meeting, and you can't put 187 pictures on your screen, no matter how big your screen is. So we didn't really get to see each other. If you wanted to make a verbal comment, you had to press a button that I'm not joking, it said raise your hand. You clicked on that button, it just meant that they would call on you if you wanted to say something. So that was interesting, but I'll keep this short because it's kind of a long meeting. But again, I appreciate, because I learned a lot. I'll bring to because I know Mr. Horton brings statistics to us about enrollment almost every meeting or every other meeting or whatever he does, which we appreciate his spreadsheets in detail, and how we're down, I think, from last year, if I remember right, 63 or something like that students. Well, the board member from Cedar Rapids said their district's down over 600. And I didn't make a mistake there, over 600. And that I just he said it more than once, and and he said they tried to do tracing as to why these students weren't from previous, they didn't graduate. These are people that should have come back. And he says his best guess, or his board's best guess, or the people that looked into it, were a lot of them, instead of choosing one of the hybrids or virtual, he thinks a lot of them chose homeschooling. And I don't know if that's his assumption. That's not for us to judge. It's just, I thought you guys would be interested in knowing that some districts have it a lot worse than we do as far as students. Another thing that came up quite a bit and was a big topic that I got to listen to was our the great AEA agencies around our state, which all do a great job, and they're probably being asked to do more now than ever before because of our need. And it was a request from the state convention participants that they create a platform, online platform for students for remote learning to give our teachers more resources. I think Joellen and all of the people have done a great job here. So maybe we don't need all the resources, but I don't think any teacher would turn away more help or more suggestions and they're also asking AE agents maybe if a teacher felt like they needed more support, that a representative from the AEA could give it to them. So that was just good to hear. Then we have a topic coming up here in a minute, substitute teacher shortage. Obviously that's felt all over the state, not just here. And I really felt for the small districts. Several board members from small districts hit that raise your hand button and spoke. And a lot of them are struggling to keep every class, supervised or taught. And, almost one guy just went into a big spiel, and my heart went out to him because he says, I don't know if we can keep the doors open much longer. And so with all that said, it just makes me feel so great to be part of this community, this district. We've pointed out some struggles that none of us are responsible for. We're just reacting to, but I learned a lot. We voted on about 20 things. I'm sorry I didn't text any of you on how to vote, but I'll just say that every one of my votes, they'd give you the results of the vote. It'd be like 95-5, or I was always in the high part. I never was a loner or did something off the grid. So some of you have probably done this many times. So I'm speaking to the choir here. But, it was my first time, and I didn't get to see many people because, like I said, you just saw the presiding president, his picture, then the agenda next to him. I mean, you can only split your screen so many times, but it was a good experience for me to listen to, and just made me feel very fortunate for our district. So that's my report. Unless you have questions.
Thank you for going.
Thank you.
I didn't go anywhere.
Well, I
This is-
know, but thank you for attending.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did anybody do any other part of the conference this year, though, being online? Nobody was able to? And that is one of the things that I don't get to go every year, but I've went over the years, and there's a lot of good information out of that. UEN piece of it is kind of, it's hard to follow sometimes. And when you're in person, you hold up you get like 10 votes for Southeast Polk, I think, if I remember right. And you sit there and you put your 10 up, and then at the end they have a UEN dinner, which is usually they have a lot of good speakers at that piece of it too, which that's only certain districts. Can you clarify? I can't remember it's the larger.
Yeah, there's 17 of us that are part of that group.
Good table discussions.
Yeah. So those are the things that we are missing out on, something like that. So hopefully next year, if everybody gets an opportunity that hasn't been to the conference in a while, I mean, it's good stuff. So thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Any other thing on the UEN meeting?
I do have a website I could forward to any of you if you want resources or notes from the meeting. If you just email me if you want me to forward that to you.
Sure. Yeah. Kevin, monthly financials.
Yes, thank you, President Handy. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this since I know you did get these a little bit late this time. But regarding the general funds, overall revenue is up 6.1%, driven primarily by property taxes. We hadn't received Part B funds yet, and typically we do by this time, but I know we received it in November. That was offset by, we received some GEAR funding. GEAR stands for the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. That was part of the federal funds that we received for internet connectivity for our students. And once those students were connected, we can use them for other things. So we did pay for most of our connectivity with that, but we also used some of that money for our K2 Chromebooks. Other revenues, you see a lot of those revenues on the other local sources going down. That's a trend. I mean, you'll see student activity revenues, things of that nature down, tuition revenues, bus revenues, which we haven't applied yet. Interest income will be down this year as interest rates have continued to decline. Expenses up 14.9%, increase to staff benefits. We know that big increase for the health insurance benefits. Sub-cost, overtime costs are up as well. I know Mr. Horton is talking about substitutes for teachers here coming up in the plan to do so. But we know that our sub costs are up currently compared to last year. Not a big dollar amount, but as far as percentage, pretty big, 34%. Our overtime is up 56%, and that has to do with some of our additional disinfecting and cleaning that's happening within our buildings. And those subs and overtime costs are primarily in the teacher ranks, drivers, and custodians. In all funds, revenues were up just 0.1%. You'll see some things in the food service area there. I'm going to drop these revenues next time, but in the all funds, you'll see that in the other federal revenues, that's substantially higher than what it was prior year. While we're in the feeding program for CARES funding, that number dropped into the federal programs rather than down in food service, but I'm going to go ahead and pull that down in food service. So what I'm trying to say is the increase in federal revenues for this year and the decrease in food service revenues, I'm going to try to make those a little bit more comparable so that I'll pull those revenues down from that standpoint. Food service revenues, no doubt, are down compared to relative to last year, but not as low as or as high as you see as the 88% negative in the food service line. Interesting fact, SAVE, our statewide penny dollars, our secure advanced vision for Iowa dollars, our capital construction money for that, only going to be down about 1.5% this year relative to what we had last year. So that's interesting based on what's happened with the pandemic and what the economic impact on that. So good to see that, at least from that standpoint. Similarly, the revenue challenges, student-related fees, donations, contributions. You'll see a big chunk of insurance proceeds in the other local revenues we received last year due to the high school roof project, or the high school roof repair that was done just last summer. As far as expenditures, up 4.5%. Wages and benefits, similar to the general fund, are up at 8%. Again, with substitute costs, overtime costs, additional benefits, that's what's really driving that number. Any questions regarding that report? Again, I know you received them late. I challenge you guys each to write me a question if you'd like to. I can certainly answer those for you in the meantime, but I do have a couple other things to talk about if there are no other questions regarding the monthly financials.
When will we get notice of premium increase for health insurance?
One more time, Mr. Fisher.
When will we get notice? When does our health insurance renew?
We have a July 1 renewal.
All right. I'm
Yeah,
good.
so we'll start projecting increases in February, but prior to that, we will be talking about different strategies
Okay.
next month. Yeah.
All right.
Regarding our business office and the things that we do for our business services standpoint, we've been challenged in many different ways when it comes to the pandemic and some of the staff that we have. But regarding what we're doing here in the office, auditors are still here. We're still being audited. Auditors plan to be on site on the next week for a day to finish up their audit. We are still on target for timeliness of the report for the audit. I know you guys are all anxious to see that audit report once it comes out. Quick update. Yes.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Quick update on capital projects. Dr. Lupnick did allude to this. We are in the midst of kind of the planning stages for a multi-purpose stadium in the middle level building. We know that those particular projects are huge projects. The middle level building is a very big project. One thing that Dr. Lupnick and I and Gary Haynes has talked about is the need for a construction manager on that project to oversee that big project because it's so important to us. So we'll be in talks with some different opportunities for construction managing for that. And also the idea of a district owner rep on those projects, not only the 6-7 of the middle level building, but also some of our larger projects that are more the high dollar volume projects. I'm talking about the multi-purpose stadium project, perhaps administrative building, the warehousing. So some of those things that we haven't talked about before, having owner rep. So somebody that is going to be sitting in those meetings for us, speaking on our behalf and reporting back to us in that capacity. This would not be a person that we would employ. This would be a person that we would contract out with that we therefore could pay from our SAVE funds with. We just think there's a need for that. There's an expertise needed for that. Above and beyond what we're doing already currently within our buildings and dealing with the things that we're dealing with now and the challenges we're dealing with now.
What did you say, Kevin? We would not employ? We would employ.
We would not, we treat them as a contracted service.
Oh, okay, understood.
That way we can pay them from not the general fund, but from the SAVE fund.
Okay.
Kevin, do we put that out for bid like we would anything else?
We wouldn't. It's a professional service, so it's based on our discussions and based on our recommendation to you. And President Handy will be probably conversing with you here in the next week or so as these projects are already underway.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if that was something that came through like a general contractor that would give us a options that, or is that we get sole choice of who those people are? Okay.
We get to pick. Yep. Yep. And one thing I'll just jump in. Sorry, Kevin, just for a second. We know our Gary is awesome. I mean, if you think back, it's before my time, but clearly he performed some of these kind of functions at Mitchellville. We're going to have sometimes 4 or 5 things happening at the same time. There's not enough Gary to go around. And so that's part of the reasoning behind what Kevin's talking about here.
Yeah, we'll still have those routine things. I think Dr. Lupnick alluded to some of the roof repairs, tuck pointing projects, things of that nature. Mr. Haynes will still be heavily involved with these projects, but this is going to allow this person to kind of be that daily oversight for the district.
Yeah, I agree completely. Obviously, we discussed this at our meeting that Gary's done a great job, and with all the other stuff that he's got, I think it definitely is a good idea. So.
And that's all I have, President Handy.
All right, any questions for Mr. Beckham? All right, looks like substitute teacher assignments, second semester. Is that Mr. Horton?
Yep.
All right, there he is.
First, I think I would start with, I really enjoyed Kevin's presentation from the standpoint that he had some kind of dramatic lighting going on over his head. I thought that was awesome. I need to get a dimmer switch or something in my office so I can come off like that. One of the things earlier in tonight's conversation, President Handy talked about things that are occurring within the organization that allow us, to keep paddling and to keep moving forward and to keep the doors open and keep that blue star on that piece of paper that Dr. Hlupnik gave you, keep it from going over to the critical side. And one of the things that we've identified, and it's kind of an interesting topic in that, it's for HR directors in education right now, and for HR folks in education, the sun comes up in the east and it sets in the west, and we worry about substitute teachers. That's just the way it is. It's part of it's part of the DNA of the job. And, currently, I'll just give you a little bit of background because I really would like to focus on the proposal and how we'd like to do a few things differently. We have 96 substitute teachers in our pool right now, as of today. Now we have 8 people in the pipeline. They're in the process of becoming part of our pool, which is great. I'd be happy with 1, let alone 8 more. Jackie Kretz informed me of that just this morning, that we've got 8 in the pipeline, which is nice. And at the beginning of the year, when we were, I would say early August, when we were starting to assess the pool, we had 120 people. And then we contacted our people, or they contacted us one way or the other. And 20 of them just said, you know what, I'm going to take a pass. I'm going to wait for the storm clouds to pass, and I'm going to wait for a vaccine, and I'm going to wait for COVID-19 to die its rightful death before I return to work, because so many of our folks are retired teachers, and, they can't get it out of their blood. They love it. And they just keep coming year after year. And I admire that greatly. And I just cannot over appreciate what they do. But I also understand, during this time, they're not going to be the first people diving to the phone or getting online and clicking on jobs because, they have their own health and their own families and their own future that Brett talked about when we were President Handy talked about when, we were talking about what's next after you retire. So, I wanted a snapshot of data. So I took 11 days, but I really only focused on 10 of them because if you look at November 13 with the asterisk next to it, that was last Friday. So you can imagine where, you know, a big number of those 105 people were. They were coaching football in Cedar Falls. They were watching football in Cedar Falls, watching their kids do the things that they love. So I kind of looked at the 13th as an outlier, and I didn't want it to affect the data too much, so I dropped it. And I said, you know, what's a snapshot of 10 days at Southeast Polk look like? And you know, it gives you kind of a good look at what those 10 days of hybrid one looked like from an absentee, available substitute, fill rate, and which jobs, you know, how many, just the raw number there of how many were successfully filled each day. You know, and as I look at the data, I go, you know, 50% that's not good. 50% is not a good fill rate. It doesn't make me go, wow, we're just doing a whale of a job. But then I look at it in the context of, you know, an all hands on deck pandemic, you know, cold and flu season that Tom referenced, and so many of the other things that are going on with folks. And I thought, you know, if we fill sub jobs more often than we don't, okay. Again, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying it's a number we want to live with. But I would say I did get a little bit of satisfaction knowing, hey, we're filling more than we're not in an environment where none of us have ever seen before, and in an environment where you know, so many of our neighbors, their fill rates aren't 54%, and they shut down, made decisions to shut down, you know, due to staffing and things like that before we did. But obviously we just did it tonight. So, you know, and then another thing I liked about the pool is we've never tapped out all 96 people, which on one hand is good because you think, okay, well, numerically, do we have enough subs? Well, we must, because we've never tapped out. But on the other hand, you know, it's really a matter more than likely of subs just not taking jobs right now. And so, you know, I'm not sure that there's a ton to gather from the data other than to say, hey, we need to call in the cavalry, or we need to invent something that functions that way so that fill rate is not 54%. And, you know, what's ideal? What are we looking for? I don't know. It's going to depend on the twists and turns of COVID-19, the same way the rest of it has. You know, I think one of the best observations I heard tonight was the idea that things outside of our organization have this heavy influence on what goes on the inside of it. And I could not agree more. And then I'll just kind of skip down. So here we are with this issue. And what we want to do is provide the best coverage possible during the peak of this, of COVID-19, or maybe after tonight's decision, upon returning to something different than online learning. You know, we want to ensure the best coverage possible, with the idea that we want to respond well. You know, are some crazy things and some horrible things and some things that function like a wrecking ball. Are those things going to happen? Yep. But so much of what we do is how we respond to it. First, if we can anticipate those things, which I think tonight's decision was very reflective of anticipating, you know, what might be coming. But at the same time, what do we do after it's come? I think these are all important considerations, and they've all been a part of this proposal. And really, the proposal is we'd like to use the last 100 days of school from January through May, and we'd like to bring in full-time substitute teachers and assign them to buildings. And those substitute teachers we would put them on. We'd have a contract with them, a short-term contract, that 100 days, and we would pay them the long-term sub pay plus FICA and IPERS. Thanks to Kevin, he taught me all about FICA and IPERS. Thank you very much, Kevin. And then as a benefit, we would offer them one personal day, because it's hard to work 100 days in a row without, without the need to take care of our personal lives. And then, and then we started to put together what might a system like this look like. And then there's another grid here on the left side of page 2 of what you've got in front of you is the total number of full-time subs, and at its apex, this proposal would have 11 substitute teachers, 1 per building, and then the cost is out there to the right again. It'd be the estimated pay plus FICA and IPERS for 11 people would be $290,000. And then as you can just kind of go down 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Now, and there's some different configurations in terms of how many people we have as far as how we might use those folks. As we get fewer and fewer folks, there's going to be more and more subs, serving 2 buildings. And what we tried to do as best we could is that we would assign them first to 1 school and then to 2 as we get fewer and fewer of these subs, if that's where we land. And we would have, if like, let's say we're in the model for 10 subs, and I'm working as the sub at Mitchellville and Runnels. And on that day, Mitchellville looks great. There's no need for a sub, but there's a need for a sub at Runnels. So obviously I'd jump in the car and take off, and I'd go to Runnels and serve as that sub for that day, and continue to do that over the course of 100 days. When we paired some of these folks up, what we tried to do was look at the geographic nearness between schools, or maybe ease of travel. That although Mitchellville and Runnels are not, I wouldn't say they're close, but it's a straight shot, for the most part, and it's not a bad drive. And then the other thing that we tried to do was look at building sizes paired for some kind of a nod to equity, like well, there's countless examples. I don't want to make this longer than it needs to be, but as we anticipate, the December 17 meeting, and if we change that, obviously that date's going to change. The board meeting, I was thinking about, okay, well, what would be our recommendation to the board? And in a lot of situations, we don't always bring situations like this to the board. But the dollar amount made us, kind of reconsider that and go, we should go to the board and talk to them about, what are their thoughts? What do they like? What do they not like in terms of a proposal like this, and the proposed costs? But our anticipated recommendation will be in December, that to further provide substitute teacher coverage for the last 100 days of the school year, the district will employ the plan as presented above that hires up to, and those words were chosen very specifically, up to 11 full-time substitute teachers. And the reason why we chose up to would give you all some room in terms of, you're thinking about how, about the literal bottom line of a proposal like this. But at the same time, it's hard to say how many people that we would bring into the organization this way. Are there 11 people that we would like to put a contract together with? I don't know, but that would be obviously that would be the top of the model, and what kind of the direction that I would like to go. I'd like to have one in every building, and then on any given day, if no subs are required, which would be, almost like a categoric, miracle, at least they could move around, and we could employ kind of a strategy like Hayden Fry used to, where we would scratch where it itches, and those people would move in that direction. So that's the basic proposal, and where we'd like to go. And another piece to again, what President Handy talked about, the things within the organization that we're doing in order to, try to stay as effective and as nimble as we can as, kind of as the world changes, or our world changes maybe. Any questions on the proposal itself?
Hey, Joe, a couple questions for you.
Sure.
My understanding is one of the difficulties we run into for our high school and junior high is that the substitutes have to match, or at least as often as possible, the field where they're subbing in. Is that accurate?
They don't have to, no.
Oh, okay. That makes it easy.
I think they try as best they can. If a math person is one of the subs that they're working with, they try to put a math person in a math room. But no, all the substitute teacher needs is the sub certification as offered by the Board of Educational Examiners. They can go wherever we need them.
Will these, we'll work with 11 just because it makes it easy. Will these 11 be the first call if the building needs a sub at all? So they'll be the first person in the door?
Yeah, I would say yes, because we don't know, we don't know if there's going to be a second one needed.
And so in this plan where there'd be 11 of them, if there wasn't a need, say at the high school or junior high, but there was multiple needs at one of the, say, Spring Creek or even one of the elementaries, would those people be flexible for those positions as well?
Yeah, Dr. Hlepnick and I were just talking about this. It was either today or yesterday. The days are running together. I'm not sure, but we were talking about, limiting, if we can, if we're able, it'd be nice to limit them so that we're not getting kind of like a cross contamination kind of thing going on, where if one of these folks was somehow COVID positive and didn't know it, that we could, sort of limit the spread. But that, in the end, that may not be, I mean, I think it's a good consideration and something that we would, I think we'd start out doing that only to find out, we've got to move people around and they've got to go to buildings where, the cavalry is needed.
One last question. I guess looking at the first page, from what your information says, it's not that our pool is not big enough, but people are simply just choosing not to take the jobs. Do you have any insight on why that is? Is it particularly because of COVID? Is it they took jobs somewhere else? Is it a price thing? What's the thought process there?
I to be candid, I haven't asked, but if you were asking, after you do this for a long time, and I've been at this 11 years now, I think I would definitely say it's all the above. I don't think there are a significant number of people who are working somewhere else, but it might be 3 or 4. And I don't think there's a significant number of people who, daily look at the positives per 100,000 people in our zip code. I don't think they're home looking at that stuff and trying to avoid, southeastern Polk County when they sub. But I also think there are other people who, yeah, they do. They work for a handful of different school districts, and usually it's whoever gets a hold of them first or whoever has the opening first that they agree to. That's the one they jump at. I'm pretty sure it's not salary, from the standpoint that we're as comparable as anybody. We're in the middle to the high end of the comparabilities. So I don't get a strong indicator that it's that, but then again, maybe it is. Most of the time it's geography. People want to work close to where they live.
Is that something we could do a study on? I know we did it for the nurses a few years back. Could we kind of look at, because I've heard through this from a couple subs that, we're not at the top. I think Des Moines maybe is $10 more than us or something. And
yeah,
I'm thinking, well, I'd still come to Southeast Polk for $10 less. But anyway, is that something you think we could look at like we did the nurses a few years ago? And just
what? Truly, I think it would be as easy as an email from me to all the other job alike me's in the area and just say, hey, what are you paying for subs? So, I could have that comparability list put together, as fast as they would respond.
Yeah.
So
it's
yeah,
not
I
pressing.
don't think it'd be a big deal if you want to see those numbers.
Yeah, I don't think it's pressing, but I think it would be something maybe for next school year to put on your list of say.
Yeah, we always want to stay on top of that and be in the desirable range. Was it last year or 2 years
Yeah, it was
ago?
just
We
the
bumped it
last
up.
2 years we adjusted.
Yeah.
Did we do, okay, I knew we did the nurses. I guess I didn't remember that, so.
We did the
But
overall.
because Ankeny's at 175, they were the only one that was really an outlier around everybody else. Everybody else was 150, 160, something like that. But
I guess it never hurts. I mean, just like we do union
Yeah,
contracts.
just kind of always keep an eye on it. Yep.
Yeah, I would say on the daily end, we're kind of in the middle to the upper middle of our comparability group at 135 a day. But I would say this, on the long-term end, we're far and away number one. Just because the way it was set up, a long time ago, it was a percentage of our base pay. And we've kind of held at that number without recalculating the base pay since then, just because we're so far out front. It's an outlier, which, it works to the benefit of a long-term substitute at Southeast Polk. Of course, they love it. And, I love it too, because it allows us to get long-term subs.
Yeah, I actually like this. I heard this was mentioned in another district around here that was doing it at the beginning of the year. And I thought, man, that'd be really cool for us to do. And as I'm reading it and listening to you, I'm thinking, why couldn't we do this just all the time? I know it's, more money for the district, but when you really look at it, when you have a sub that you can always rely on, or two subs in a building, whatever you choose to do, it's nice just to be able to know, I already got two in the building. I don't have to sit here and go. And I know we do struggle even in a regular year that sometimes we still, those last minute, sicknesses where a teacher has to go, or a staff, I guess it'd be more teachers, but maybe they have a doctor's appointment or half a day. Well, you don't really, then you're putting two classes together for half a day where you could just slide this person in. And so I like the idea.
I think Des Moines has a $500 sign-on bonus. Yeah, there's things that they're doing to entice.
Yeah, that was one thing that I almost fell out of my chair the first time Jill slid this across my desk when I saw the numbers there. But then when you step back and think what that long-term sub rate is, it's not that far off from what if we had a long-term sub at each building. And then it makes a lot more sense, because what's not shown in the number in your chart there is what we would pay for that needed sub anyway on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Another thing I would add to that, and Dr. Hlepnick reminded me of this the other day, and I went, well, duh. And that's why he's the superintendent, because so he can remind me of things like this. But we were talking about this proposal, and he said, there could be some cost savings here too, but it's hidden, and it's hidden because it looks like cost avoidance. And that would be if we're hiring one sub, let's say we're hiring it into Runnels Elementary School.
Sure.
That person would serve as a sub, and we would avoid having to hire the daily sub. So there's a little bit of cost avoidance there each time, each day. That again, it's not something that jumps right out to you, but there could be some cost avoidance that might line up there, especially if you only needed one sub that day. There would be the avoidance of having to bring this other person in. So that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So you beat me to it. But so you could basically, assuming you had a need for one sub a day for each building, you could take that number and you could subtract out the daily rate. And so really it's not a huge increase.
Right.
If you had a day where you didn't need the sub, then you're still paying for that, right? So
right,
then you wouldn't get the avoidance.
Right. And it'd be the difference, the cost avoidance would be the difference between $135 and $224, whatever that is, Kevin, if you're still out there with your cool mood lighting.
Mr. Horton, this is Rick Powell. What I'm about to say isn't to check on if Kevin's listening or not, but
He's always listening.
I love this idea personally, because we've all read emails or heard from staff members that just have to give up planning periods every day, or teachers in the elementary only have a 25-minute away from kids time, all those things you've heard probably more than we have, but it's almost like, I agree with 11 subs. It's almost like for 50 days, maybe we should have 2. That's where see if Kevin's listening, but I don't know what you think, but I think it's a great idea, the 11, and
Look at, he's jumping in. He goes,
okay, he's jumping in. Okay.
exclamation point.
No,
He's going to tell you.
His favorite
I just think
word.
it's a great idea.
thank you.
Yeah, I suppose you already thought of this, Joe, but, and I'm sorry, Mr. Horton, I should be respectful of you. You've been so respectful of me, but please don't call me President Handy anymore. I don't care what you call me. That sounds funny. But anyway, I could almost see this as a hiring tool where if you have 2 good candidates that come in that
You bet.
young teachers that right out of college that you want to grab onto, but yet, maybe you can sweeten the pie a little bit to get them to stay even though they weren't. And I know we do a good job where it's not just focused on one school. They get maybe opportunities to interview with different principals, but I could see where you could, we could get some good teachers that we can just really, hey, maybe you don't really want to go work there, but we can't take you here, but we can give you a job and see how we like them too, so.
Yes, no question about it. That's it's interesting you bring that up. I rolled this proposal out to the principals and said, okay, what do you like? What do you don't like? Go ahead, tear it apart. And they did a great job of that. And then they pieced that together really fast because, all of them are working with student teachers right now who are about ready to get a degree. They're about ready to become certified teachers, and none of them have jobs. So they're kind of waiting in the wings to make these connections with some of our student teachers who are currently with us, or who were with us, more like 8 weeks ago, where they did their first placement with us, and then maybe they did another placement somewhere else. But they do a really nice job of keeping good candidates, keeping lists of them, or some of them can just remember names and email addresses and stuff of people who, they're either currently or they just newly worked with them. And I'm assuming those will be the kind of the first wave of people that we'll reach out to.
Dr. Horton, I know you don't have your doctorate degree, but I just want to give you a kudos.
Working on it though, aren't you?
I'm sure you listened to the whole meeting today and tonight.
Sure.
I'm concerned about elementary kids, especially what we're going to be doing the next 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, learning virtually. And if they don't have an adult sitting next to them, I struggle with that. And I also struggle with that when we're in hybrid too, for the same reason, when they're on their off days. Do you think this kind of relates to subs, and I'm not trying to be funny, I'm trying to be very serious. We have so many exceptional academic students, one sitting right here in the room with us. Have we ever thought, or you or Dr. Latham thought about, how can we use some of our students to help teach other students? Has that ever, or is that too broad of you don't want to open that box? I don't know, but it seems like we have so many resources that we're not using, and
sure,
whether they get credit for their silver cords or what, but I just think of all those parents that have written us emails and they don't have time to sit by their kids, or they don't understand it even when they are sitting by their kids. We have so many sharp students at the secondary level that this might be, like you said, I know we have a teacher's academy. I'm just trying to, as all 7 of us are, we're thinking of not only this 2 weeks where we're in virtual, but if we ever go back to hybrid 2, we have the same problem where kids are sitting there on their off days without help.
I guess here's how I would respond to that. When I was in the classroom, and probably Dr. Latham and Dr. Hlupnik and the rest of us who taught a while back, does everybody remember cooperative learning training? where so much, it was like this, back then it was like this really revolutionary thing where you put kids in groups and they work collaboratively and cooperatively together, and each person would have a different role in the group. And that's really how, in so many ways, school or the school experience for kids was being revolutionized. But I look at what our teachers are doing now, and what we were doing then was like bean bags compared to what they're doing with, cooperative learning groups, putting kids together, learning collaboratively, project-based learning, all these really super cool things that they're doing that really didn't sort of, it's like they weren't on the menu for us back in those days. So, I think maybe a little more indirectly than what you're talking about, I think that dynamic happens all the time in schools across the district, because our people understand way better than we ever did back when we were teachers, that learning is it's a group thing. It's not learning in isolation anymore. So much of what we did was solitary. I was an English language arts teacher. Kids would read alone, write alone. We would have small group discussions and things like that, but that's about as collaborative as we got in those days. And now the whole notion of reading a novel or experiencing a poem or watching a play or reading a play or whatever, it's a group activity now. And so kids do learn from each other. And back in the old days, we weren't smart enough to know that or to capitalize on it the way our teachers do now. They're so much better than we ever were, in so many ways. Although maybe I should just speak for myself, because I'm sure Dr. Hlupnik and Dr. Latham were much better teachers than I was. But it's just remarkable what they can do, and they can accomplish the goals that I think you're talking about, but they do it all day, every day, naturally, easily, and in ways that are engaging. I don't know. That's how I would answer your question. And I just went blah, 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 blah. And I'm not sure I said anything that was of any value.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Horton, one last question for me, I guess, and it kind of goes along with some of this, at least from some of the information you've got in here.
Sure.
I like the proposal as a whole because I think it takes us a step towards being able to do in-person learning again and on a more permanent level. I guess my question comes from, we all have different people that we talk to as far as teachers and other staff members that we know personally who relay their experiences and perspective. With this all hands on deck approach, being in its third month of existence, what would be your perspective? How is our staff? How is our district staff? How are they mentally? How are they emotionally? We've got an idea physically based on some of the numbers we get, but the other pieces I think are just as important and concerning. So
yeah, this is a tough one and probably a really great question for our principals, since they're rubbing elbows with them all day, every day. But I would say this: anytime we take an all hands on deck approach, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard. We were talking in a principals meeting the other day, and I said, this is the best way I can explain it. I said, after the derecho, we have a bunch of trees in my yard, And part of it, we call it the timber because there's, there might be 100 trees in there and they're all really close together, but a whole bunch of trees went down. And I thought, well, I'm just going to grab my boys, my 3 sons, and we're going to go in there and we're going to cut this up and we're going to clean it up because it's just a mess. It looks horrible. So it really was my version of an all hands on deck approach. So we got together and we walked in there and we started cutting stuff and we felt good because we were making some progress. But then when you go to the inside of the timber and you look around, you go, oh my Lord, this is horrible. And we're going to cut here for 6 months and we're never getting out. And then, we started joking about it and having conversations about it. But it was the best analogy I could think of for what I think our teachers see. I think they are going, you know what, it's all hands on deck and we're going to do this. And then they get on the inside of what all this really looks like and where the rubber meets the road. And I think they look at each other and go, oh my Lord, this is a lot. This is a lot. And it's going to take a lot of stamina and it's going to take a lot of self-care. And it's going to take a lot of just, some days it's a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and keeping moving forward, even when you don't want to, or subbing for a friend or a colleague or whatever, even though you've done it 5 days in a row. Just taking care of that one day today, and then we'll figure out tomorrow has been an adjustment for all of us. The dynamics of this pandemic have really changed a lot about the way all of us work. Dr. Belger and I have conversations about, 2 people come back to work after being on quarantine and we're doing like the high five elbow thing in the hallway. Like, hey, I'm getting 2 back. This might work. We could do this. So that's a lot of what our teachers are feeling as well. And I know some of them have to be thinking this is as hard as it gets. And the hard part of what I've seen is they might be right. This might be as hard as it gets. That's why I hope your models are wrong that we've talked about tonight, because if they're not, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse until such time as, we come into contact with the vaccine that works and it's widely distributed, to everybody. So yeah, I think that some of them are feeling very much overwhelmed. Yep, I do. And it really tests their capacity like maybe they it hasn't been tested before. The hard part is, if this is a marathon, we're at about mile 9. We haven't even seen the 23rd mile yet. That worries me a little bit, for our people. And it'd be a lot easier if we didn't have such really good and talented and decent people. We could just crack the whip and by golly, we're gonna finish this marathon. But that's not the approach. At least not one that we think would be effective. In fact, I think it'd go the other way.
It probably cost us a lot of talent too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm afraid all of this is going to cost the profession some talent. Mr. Handy's concern. I keep doing that tonight. I apologize. His concern for the number of people who are going to leave, due to early retirement. That's real. I couldn't agree more with him. And, there's a handful of people there that I go, oh my gosh, if these people go, what are we going to do? And we'll figure it out because I feel that way every year. But I just think the volume is the potential for a large number of people to leave the organization is there. I hope they don't. I hope we come up with a big zero goose egg and nobody leaves and nobody retires early. But I think that's silly for me to hope that. Yeah. But I like silly thoughts, so it's okay.
I'm with you. I hope it's wrong too.
Gets us through the day.
I'm not willing to bet anybody, but any other questions for Mr. Horton on the additional staff, temporary staff? If not, Do I get an
I want to
adjournment?
make
Oh.
just a comment.
Okay.
Again, I want the staff to know how very much we appreciate them, the administration, the students, and the parents. This is not easy on anyone, and all 7 of us up here appreciate all of you and what you're having to endure. Double shifts, working multiple classrooms, all the different things that you're all doing to cover for each other. Also, parents trying to work and educate your children and help everywhere you can. We all appreciate everything that all of you are doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else?